Who drew this?
My daughter.
At 11:47 p.m., Jagger Perry stood beneath the glowing bus schedule pretending there was still a ride coming. Behind him, his 8-year-old daughter Harper slept across 2 metal seats, her faded yellow backpack beneath her cheek. Officer Dennis Cole was already walking toward them. Then Harper stirred, and a drawing slipped onto the station floor. Vanessa Whitmore stepped over, it nearly reaching the glass doors before something made her stop. She turned. On the paper was a bus station, a father, a little girl, and one empty chair behind a curved wooden wall. Vanessa stared at that chair. Then, for the first time in years, she turned back. Before we continue, tell us your country and local time in the comments. And if stories about people the world almost overlooks mean something to you, stay with us and subscribe. 19 days earlier, Jagger Perry had still owned a key. It was a plain brass apartment key with a blue plastic cap, and for nearly 6 years it had opened the second-floor door of a narrow brick building on Chippewa Street. On the morning the landlord changed the lock, Jagger stood outside with Harper beside him and kept the useless key in his pocket. He never threw it away. By the 19th morning, without an address, Jagger had learned that homelessness had its own schedule. At 5:35 a.m., before the first wave of commuters filled Gateway Transportation Center, his eyes opened automatically. He had not truly been asleep. Jagger slept in pieces now. 7 minutes, 12 minutes, sometimes 20 if the station was quiet. His body rested, while some deeper part of him remained awake listening for footsteps approaching Harper. He sat up slowly. His daughter was curled against the metal seats beside him, her knees tucked beneath Jagger's brown work jacket. "Harper," he whispered. "Morning bug." She made a small sound and pulled at the jacket higher. Jagger smiled despite himself. Long commute starts early. That was what he called it, the long commute, never homelessness, never sleeping in a bus station, never nowhere to go. Harper opened one eye. 5 more minutes. You said that yesterday. Did it work? No. Then maybe today is my lucky day. Jagger almost laughed, almost. Up. They moved quickly because routine gave them dignity when almost everything else had disappeared. Jagger folded his jacket into a careful square. He checked beneath the seats twice. Harper packed her drawings into the faded yellow backpack she had carried since first grade. Inside the men's family restroom, Jagger wet brown paper towels with warm water. Face. Harper closed her eyes while he wiped sleep from her cheeks. Cold. It's warm. It's emotionally cold. Jagger looked at her. Where'd you learn that? Miss Donnelly. I'm calling your school and asking them to stop teaching you adjectives. Harper grinned. Jagger used a small black comb with 2 missing teeth to straighten her hair. Lauren had once done Harper's hair while humming old R&B songs in their kitchen. Jagger had watched without understanding that one day he would need to remember every movement. He had learned badly at first, then carefully. Now he could part Harper's hair with steady hands. There, he said. Harper studied herself in the mirror. Crooked. Artistic. Crooked. Your bus is leaving. We don't have a bus. Jagger's hand stopped, only for a second. Harper looked at him through the mirror, then she smiled. Long commute joke. Jagger exhaled. Very funny. At 6:12, they bought one plain bagel from the station cafe, $2.19. Jagger knew the price because every dollar had begun carrying a consequence. Harper sat across from him and broke the bagel in half. She pushed one piece toward her father. I'm not hungry, Jagger said. You said that yesterday. I wasn't hungry yesterday. And Tuesday. Not hungry. Wednesday. Harper. She pushed the bread closer. You have a very boring stomach. Jagger stared at her. 8 years old, already learning how adults lied about hunger. He took the bagel. Half, he said, half. 2 years earlier, Jagger had believed the worst thing that could happen to their family had already happened. Lauren Perry had been driving home from a late shift when another car crossed the center line. A police officer knocked on Jagger's apartment door at 1:18 in the morning. After Lauren died, Jagger returned to work at Branson Exhibit Works because grief did not stop rent from arriving. He had worked there 12 years. He could build exhibition walls from rough drawings, repair warped cabinetry, and identify a bad joint by running one thumb across the seam. Then Branson lost 2 major contracts. The owner gathered 27 workers beside the loading dock and said the company was closing. Jagger received his final paycheck on a Friday. For 6 months, he survived on savings and temporary work. Then the rent increased. The transmission in his Ford Escape began slipping. Jagger chose rent over repairs. 3 months later, the Ford was repossessed. Without the car, temporary jobs became harder to reach. Without steady work, the rent fell behind. The blue-capped key stopped opening a door. At 8:40 that morning, Jagger and Harper entered the St. Louis Public Library. Harper took her usual seat near the children's section. Jagger chose computer number 14. He opened his email, no replies. He checked again. Still nothing. Jagger had submitted 38 applications in 19 days. Maintenance technician, cabinet installer, warehouse associate, facilities assistant, furniture repair. At one interview, a recruiter had looked at his application and asked, "Current address." Jagger gave the Chippewa Street address. The recruiter typed something. Then he looked at Jagger's wrinkled shirt and the yellow backpack beside his chair. "You still live there?" Jagger had hesitated too long. The man knew. Jagger knew he knew. Neither said anything. The interview lasted 4 more minutes. That afternoon, Harper sat beside computer 14 with 6 colored pencils spread across the table. Red, blue, yellow, green, brown, purple. She had once owned 24. The others had disappeared through school, moving boxes, and 19 days of carrying everything important on her back. "What are you drawing?" Jagger asked. "A room." "What room?" "One that isn't built yet." Jagger looked at the page. Harper had drawn a window, a table, and several chairs. One chair sat alone near the window. Jagger noticed it but said nothing. At 4:17 p.m., he received another rejection email. He closed the screen before Harper could read it. That evening, inside a library restroom stall, Jagger locked the door and removed his wallet. He counted the money once. Then again, a third time slower, 110, 15, 3 ones, 4 dimes, 2 pennies. $18.42. Jagger stared at the money in his palm. Outside the stall, someone washed their hands and left. The room became quiet. $18.42, a father, a daughter, and no room left for one more mistake. Jagger kept the $18.42 folded behind his driver's license, as if hiding the money from his own eyes might stop it from shrinking. The next morning, he and Harper returned to the library before 10. Computer 14 was occupied. Jagger stood near the public terminals, waiting for a college student to finish printing a paper, while Harper settled at a low table beside the children's shelves. She unzipped her yellow backpack and removed a stack of drawings held together with a purple rubber band. Jagger had seen her draw every day. He had not really looked. There was a difference. While waiting, he picked up the first page. A kitchen. Harper had drawn green cabinets, a yellow refrigerator, and a round brown table. 3 chairs surrounded it. One was empty. The next drawing showed a bedroom with 2 beds and a purple lamp. Near the window sat an empty chair. The third was a blue house with a crooked chimney. Harper had drawn herself in the yard and Jagger near the front door. Beside the porch was another chair. Empty. Jagger spread the pictures across the table. Harper looked up. "You're messing up the order. There's an order." "Yes." "What order?" "The rooms." Jagger sat across from her. He touched the kitchen drawing, then the bedroom, then the blue house. "You always leave one chair." Harper looked at the pictures as if she had never noticed. "For whoever comes back." Jagger's finger stopped on the paper. Around them, the library continued its ordinary morning. A cart squeaked between shelves. A printer released pages. Somewhere near the front desk, a man argued quietly about a library card. Jagger looked at the empty chair. Lauren used to sit near the kitchen window. Every Sunday morning, she drank coffee from a white mug with the words, "World's Okayest Mom," printed across it. Harper had bought the mug at a school holiday shop for $4.30. After Lauren died, Jagger had left the chair untouched for almost 3 months. He could not sit there, neither could Harper. "For whoever comes back," Jagger repeated. Harper selected the blue pencil. Yeah, he wanted to tell her something. He did not know what. There were truths adults called necessary because they had forgotten what it felt like to be 8 years old. Jagger gathered the drawings carefully. "Keep the chair," he said. Harper nodded and returned to coloring. At 10:26, Computer 14 became available. Jagger had just opened a job board when his prepaid phone vibrated. The screen was cracked across the lower corner. Unknown number. He answered immediately. "Jagger Perry speaking." "Mr. Perry, this is Wayne from Mid-County Property Services. You applied for the maintenance technician position." Jagger straightened. "Yes, sir." "We had a cancellation." "Can you come in today?" "Absolutely." 1:30, our facility is on Industrial Drive. Jagger looked at the clock. 1:30 works. "Don't be late. We're trying to fill this today." "I'll be there." The call ended. Jagger opened the transit website. 2 buses. 1 transfer, estimated travel time 1 hour and 22 minutes. He checked the fare, then he checked his wallet. Harper was watching him. "You got an interview?" Jagger looked up. "How do you know?" "You do the eyebrow thing." "What eyebrow thing?" She raised one eyebrow badly. Jagger almost smiled. 1:30. Go. I have to figure out where you're staying. Reading program. The library ran a children's reading activity from noon until 3 on Thursdays. Harper had attended once during their first week without the apartment. Jagger looked toward the children's desk. "I'll ask Claire." Harper pointed her blue pencil at him. "And don't do the shirt thing." Jagger looked down. "What shirt thing?" "You keep pulling it." His hand was already gripping the bottom of his shirt. He released it. "You're 8. I know. You're supposed to be bad at noticing things." Harper returned to her drawing. "You should have picked a different kid." At 11:58, Jagger left the library, and he spent $2.50 on the first bus. The driver gave him a transfer slip. Jagger sat near the front, one hand around his backpack. He mentally rehearsed answers. 12 years of fabrication experience, preventive maintenance, basic electrical troubleshooting, wood repair, power tools, reading shop drawings. He knew how to work. That was the part nobody seemed willing to wait long enough to discover. At 12:41, the bus stopped near Grand Avenue. Jagger stepped off and crossed to the connecting stop. The electronic sign displayed a delay, 5 minutes, then 9. Then the route disappeared entirely. Jagger approached another driver. "Excuse me, the westbound connection." "Canceled, mechanical issue. When's the next one?" 35, maybe 40 minutes. Jagger checked his phone. 12:49. Industrial Drive was nearly 3 miles away. He started running. The backpack struck his spine with every step. His old work boots were built for standing on concrete, not running beside 6 lanes of traffic. At 1:07, sweat had soaked the back of his shirt. At 1:16, his left heel began burning. At 1:24, he could see the industrial complex. Jagger ran harder. He entered Mid-County Property Services at 1:43. A receptionist looked up. "I'm here for Wayne, Jagger Perry." Her expression changed slightly. "One moment." Wayne appeared from a hallway 2 minutes later. He was holding a clipboard. "Mr. Perry?" "Yes, sir. I'm sorry. My connecting bus was canceled." "I came as fast as I could." Wayne looked at the clock. "We filled the position." Jagger stared at him. "The interview was at 1:30. "I know. I'm 13 minutes late. We had another applicant here." Jagger's breathing was still uneven. "I have 12 years working fabrication and maintenance. If you give me 10 minutes, I can explain my experience." Wayne shook his head. "We need reliability." The word landed harder than Jagger expected. Reliability, as if he had chosen the canceled bus, as if he had stopped for lunch, as if he had not run 3 miles because $18.42 had made a rideshare impossible. Jagger nodded. "I understand." He did not understand. But dignity sometimes meant leaving before anger made strangers feel justified in misunderstanding you. "Thank you for your time." Outside, Jagger sat on the curb. He removed his boot. Blood had stained the heel of his sock. For nearly a minute he simply stared at it. Then he put the boot back on. The return trip took almost 2 hours. Near the library was a discount store. Jagger entered because Harper needed toothpaste. He found the smallest tube, $1.25. On the way to the register, he passed the school supplies. A box of 24 colored pencils sat on the shelf. $6.49. Jagger stopped. He imagined Harper opening it. Orange again. Pink, gray, black. All the colors she had lost. He picked up the box. $6.49. His thumb moved across the cardboard. Then he remembered the bus fare, the bagel, tomorrow. Jagger returned the box to the shelf. When he reached the library, Harper was sitting with Claire Benton near the children's desk. Harper saw him. Her eyes dropped immediately to his boots. "You ran." Jagger frowned. "No." "You did." "How would you know? You walk different." Jagger sat beside her. Harper looked at his face. "You didn't get it." He shook his head. "Not this one." Harper was quiet. On their way out, they passed the discount store window. The colored pencils were visible from the sidewalk. Harper slowed. Jagger noticed. "I saw those," he said. Harper shrugged. "I like mine." "You've only got 6. "That's enough." "Harper?" She looked up at him. "When you don't have every color, you have to think harder." Jagger stared at his daughter. Harper continued walking. That night, Gateway Transportation Center felt colder. At 10:36, Harper was drawing while Jagger watched the doors. Officer Dennis Cole stood near the information counter. He was holding a small black notebook. Dennis looked at Jagger, then Harper. He lowered his eyes and wrote something. Jagger watched the pen move. A date, a time. Maybe their names. Dennis closed the notebook and placed it in his pocket. For 19 days, Jagger had believed he and Harper could survive by becoming invisible. Now, someone was counting the nights, and Jagger knew that once the world started keeping a record of your worst days, it rarely asked how hard you had fought to survive them. The family assistant's office opened at 8:30. Jagger and Harper were outside at 8:12. The building stood between a pharmacy and a vacant storefront with paper covering its windows. A white sign on the glass listed services in blue letters: emergency housing, food assistance, family stabilization. Jagger read the first 2 words twice: emergency housing. He had avoided places like this for 19 days. not because he believed asking for help was shameful. Jagger had learned long ago that pride did not put food in a child's stomach, but every form asked questions. Where do you sleep? Does your child have a stable residence? Is there a safe adult available? Jagger knew those questions existed for reasons. He also knew the difference between the truth of a father's love and the truth a checkbox could hold. Harper tugged his sleeve. Are we going in? Jagger opened the door. That's why we're standing here. You were staring. I read slow. You don't. Today I do. Inside, 23 plastic chairs faced a reception desk. Jagger counted without meaning to. 7 people were already waiting. A toddler slept across his mother's lap. An elderly man held a folder thick with medical papers. Near the wall, a woman in blue scrubs stared at her phone while silently crying. Harper sat beside Jagger. She removed her 6 pencils. No drawing on official paperwork, Jagger said. I know. Last time, you gave the electric bill eyebrows. It looked angry. It was an electric bill. It was very angry. Jagger smiled. At 9:06, a woman called his name. Mr. Perry, Jagger stood. The woman introduced herself as Megan Foster. She was in her 30s, wore a gray cardigan, and carried a yellow legal pad instead of a tablet. Her office was small, 1 window, 3 chairs. A framed photograph of the gateway arch hung crooked behind her desk. Megan noticed Harper looking at it. It falls crooked every Monday, she said. Harper tilted her head. Maybe it likes Tuesdays better. Megan smiled. Jagger did not. He sat forward. We need a place. Megan's smile disappeared, not from coldness, but attention. Okay. I have a child, 8 years old, no substance issues, no criminal record. I can work. I've been applying. Mr. Perry. Jagger stopped. You don't have to prove you're a good person before you tell me what happened. The sentence made him uncomfortable. He looked toward Harper. Can she draw in the hall? Megan nodded. Harper took her pencils and sat just outside the open office door. Jagger could still see her yellow backpack. Megan opened her legal pad. How long have you been without permanent housing? 19 days. Where did you stay last night? Jagger looked at the crooked gateway arch. Transportation center. Megan's pen paused. Gateway. Yes. How many nights? Not every night, Mr. Perry. Some nights we stayed awake at the library until closing. A church let us sit in their lobby twice. One night I paid for a motel. How many nights at Gateway? Jagger rubbed his thumb against a callus on his palm. 11. Megan set down her pen. Jagger immediately stiffened. She's clean. She goes to school. She eats before I do. I stay awake. I'm not accusing you. I didn't say you were. No, but you're answering questions I haven't asked. Silence filled the office. Megan turned toward her computer. She checked one program, then another. Her expression told Jagger the answer before she spoke. The family shelter on Page Avenue is full. Next. Hope Harbor has a waiting list. Next. Megan clicked again. There's transitional placement, but intake could take 3 to 6 weeks. Next. Mr. Perry. There's always a next. Not always today. Jagger leaned back. Outside the office, Harper's blue pencil moved across paper. Megan lowered her voice. I need to tell you something clearly. Jagger waited. If Harper's school becomes aware that she's repeatedly sleeping in a transportation facility, they may ask questions about her housing stability. Jagger's jaw tightened. What kind of questions? Standard welfare questions. That doesn't answer me. They may make a referral. To child services. They could. Jagger stood. Megan remained seated. I came here for a bed. I know. And you're telling me coming here could put my daughter in a file. No. I'm telling you, the situation already exists whether you tell me or not. Jagger looked through the doorway. Harper was drawing. He lowered his voice. Do they count how many nights I kept her warm or only the nights I failed to find a room? Megan did not answer immediately. That was worse than a lie. Jagger picked up his backpack. Mr. Perry, I'm going. Take my card. I don't need another card. You might. Jagger looked at her. Megan placed the card on the desk. I can't create a shelter bed, she said. I wish I could, but if something opens, I can call you. My phone doesn't always have service. Then call me from the library every morning. Jagger hesitated. Megan wrote a direct extension on the back of the card. 9:15, she said. Every morning. Jagger took it. Outside, Harper held up her drawing. It showed two hands, one large, one small. Those mine? Jagger asked, the big ugly one. Respect your elders. You're 38. Ancient. They left. At noon, Jagger saw the sign. Hiring immediately. It hung in the window of a furniture store near South Grand. Jagger stopped so quickly Harper nearly walked into him. Library's 4 blocks, he said. I know. Claire's working. I know. You stay with her. Harper looked at the sign. Go. 20 minutes later, Jagger entered the furniture store alone. A manager stood behind the counter. I'm here about the hiring sign. The manager looked at Jagger's boots, then his shirt. Applications are online. Jagger glanced at the window. It says immediate. Yes. I have 12 years in fabrication and furniture repair. Great. Put that on the online application. Could I speak with whoever handles maintenance? The manager's expression tightened. Online, sir. Jagger nodded. Thank you. He walked out. He did not look at the sign again. At the library, Claire Benton was pushing a cart when Jagger noticed the wooden handrail near the children's stairs move beneath her hand. Don't lean on that. Claire stopped. Jagger crouched. One mounting bracket had loosened. The wood shifted nearly half an inch. You have maintenance, he asked. They come Tuesdays. It's Thursday. Claire sighed. I'll block the stairs. Jagger opened his backpack. Beneath 2 shirts and Harper's toothpaste was a small tool roll. Claire watched him. You carry tools. I carry useful things. Jagger removed a screwdriver and a compact adjustable wrench. He loosened the bracket, repositioned it, and secured the mounting bolt. Then he tested the rail with both hands. 7 minutes. Claire stared. How much? For what? Fixing it. You didn't hire me. You fixed it. Jagger rolled his tools. Then next time, hire me first. Claire smiled. What do you do, Jagger? He looked at his hands. Whatever they'll let me prove, I can do. Across the room, Harper was drawing those hands again. At 5:42, the library television displayed the evening weather. A cold front was moving through Missouri. The overnight temperature would fall to 24 degrees. Jagger opened the shelter map Megan had given him. He called 3 numbers from the library phone. Full, full, families only by referral. At 8:55, the library announced closing. Harper packed her 6 pencils. Jagger folded the shelter map and placed it in his pocket. Where are we commuting tonight? Harper asked. He looked through the windows. Wind pushed dead leaves across the sidewalk. Jagger thought of Officer Dennis Cole, the black notebook, the dates being counted. Then he thought of 24 degrees. Gateway, he said. They walked toward the bus stop. That night, at 10:51, Jagger and Harper entered Gateway Transportation Center again. Dennis saw them immediately. For a moment, neither man moved. Then Dennis reached toward his pocket. Jagger knew the notebook was there. He also knew the cold was outside. Jagger placed his jacket around Harper's shoulders and chose 2 metal seats beneath the brightest light. He had spent 19 days trying to become invisible. Tonight, he chose warmth instead, even if someone was counting. Vanessa Whitmore had spent 23 years teaching herself not to turn back. Not for missed flights. Not for employees who ignored deadlines. Not for clients who changed their minds after contracts were signed. And certainly not for decisions she had already made. At Whitmore Civic Design, people knew one rule about their CEO. If Vanessa left the room, the discussion was over. That Thursday, she had spent 9 hours in Kansas City arguing about a transportation renovation project that should have required 4. The city committee wanted cheaper wall panels, cheaper seating, fewer wind barriers. One council representative had tapped the budget sheet and said, "People are waiting for buses, Miss Whitmore. They're not checking into a hotel." Vanessa had stared at him. Comfort isn't only for people who can afford to purchase it. The room had gone quiet. Then they argued for another 2 hours. By the time Vanessa returned to St. Louis, she was exhausted. Her phone showed 17 unread emails. Richard Hayes had sent 3 messages about the fabrication schedule. Her assistant had reminded her twice about an 8:00 a.m. review meeting. Vanessa wanted her house, her shower, silence. At 11:47 p.m., she crossed Gateway Transportation Center with one leather travel bag rolling behind her. That was when she saw Jagger Perry. She did not know his name yet. To Vanessa, he was simply a tall man in an old brown work jacket standing beneath a glowing bus schedule. He was reading it too carefully. Vanessa noticed details for a living. The man's eyes were not moving across the routes. He kept looking at the reflection in the schedule's plastic cover. Behind him, a little girl slept across 2 metal seats, faded yellow backpack beneath her cheek. One shoe untied. A sheet of white paper rested near her hand. Vanessa slowed, then continued walking. It was none of her business. A security officer approached from the information counter. "Sir," the man turned. "Evening?" "We've talked about this." The officer's voice was quiet. Vanessa kept walking. "I know," Jagger said. "The last departure was 40 minutes ago. We're waiting for the morning line." "Sir?" The little girl stirred. Jagger immediately moved toward her. "Hey, Bug, it's okay. I'm awake." "You don't have to be." The girl sat up. The paper near her hand slipped from the seat and floated to the floor. Vanessa stepped over it. Her hand was already reaching toward the glass exit doors. Then she stopped. She did not know why. Later, Vanessa would tell herself it was the shape, the angle of the line, the curve drawn in blue pencil. But the truth was more uncomfortable. For 1 second, something inside her had recognized the picture before her mind did. Vanessa turned around. The paper lay beneath the station lights. She walked back and picked it up. It was a child's drawing. A bus station. The proportions were wrong. The windows were too tall. The bus outside was purple. 3 people were drawn inside, a father, a little girl, and another figure near the far edge of the page almost erased. Beside the window sat an empty chair, but Vanessa barely looked at the people. She stared at the wall behind the chair. Harper had drawn 3 curved wooden sections overlapping each other. The lines formed a shallow barrier. Not straight, not decorative, angled. Vanessa's thumb moved across the paper. For a moment, the transportation center disappeared. She remembered a kitchen table, a pencil without an eraser, a man's hand moving across the back of an old bus schedule. Vanessa blinked. The memory vanished. "Ma'am," Jagger was standing in front of her. Vanessa looked up. He was taller than she had expected. Tired eyes, unshaven, but alert. His body was positioned between Vanessa and Harper. Vanessa recognized the posture immediately. Protection, not aggression. "I'm sorry," Jagger said. "She drops paper everywhere." "I do not," Harper said. Jagger looked back. "You currently have evidence on the floor. One paper isn't everywhere." Vanessa almost smiled. Almost. Jagger reached for the drawing. Vanessa did not release it. "Who drew this?" Jagger's expression changed. "My daughter." Harper raised her hand. "Me?" Vanessa looked at her. "What's your name?" Jagger answered first. "Harper." The girl frowned. "I can answer." "Harper," Jagger said. Vanessa crouched slightly, keeping distance between them. "Harper, who showed you how to draw this wall." Harper looked at the picture. "What wall?" "This." Vanessa pointed at the curved sections. Harper shrugged. "I made it." "You've seen something like it." "I don't know. At school, no. On television." Jagger stepped closer. "Why?" Vanessa looked at him. "Because that's not how most children draw a wall." Harper tilted her head. "How do children draw walls?" Vanessa paused. "Straight. Wind goes around straight things." The answer came so quickly that Vanessa stared at her. Harper pointed at the picture. "If the girl sleeps there, the wind comes from the doors." Jagger's face tightened. "Harper." "What?" "That's enough." Vanessa looked from the drawing to the metal seats, the brown jacket around Harper's shoulders, the yellow backpack, then toward Officer Dennis Cole. Dennis had stopped several feet away. He was watching Jagger. Not like a stranger, like someone he recognized. Vanessa understood. The man had not been reading the bus schedule. The girl was not tired from a late trip. They were not waiting for a morning line. Vanessa felt an old instinct rise inside her. Solve it. Ask how much a room cost. Call her assistant. Book a hotel. Make the problem disappear before midnight. Her hand moved toward her phone. Then she stopped. She remembered a voice. Not the whole sentence, just one word, control. Vanessa put the phone away. Jagger noticed. His eyes hardened slightly. He had seen the movement. He knew what she had almost done. Vanessa handed the drawing back. "Sorry." Jagger took it. "No problem." He folded the page carefully. Vanessa looked at his hands. The nails were clean but rough. Small cuts crossed two fingers. A pale scar ran near his left thumb. There were thick calluses beneath his index fingers. Vanessa had spent enough time in fabrication shops to recognize those hands. You work with wood." Jagger looked at her. "I did." "Cabinetry, some. Furniture, some. Structural fabrication. Exhibit fabrication." Vanessa became still. "Where?" Jagger hesitated. "Branson Exhibit Works." The name pulled at something in her memory. "How long?" 12 years. "And now?" Jagger looked toward Harper. "Now I'm looking." Vanessa heard what he did not say. She had interviewed executives who used 10-minute answers to hide one simple truth. Jagger Perry had hidden his entire life in 4 words. "Now I'm looking." "What is your name?" Vanessa asked. "Jagger Perry." "Vanessa." She did not add Whitmore. Jagger nodded. "Nice to meet you." The words were polite. The conversation was finished as far as he was concerned. Vanessa should have left. Her car was waiting. Her phone was vibrating again. 8 o'clock meeting. 17 emails. Richard Hayes. Kansas City, budgets. She looked at Harper. The girl had placed the drawing inside her yellow backpack and taken out 6 colored pencils. Only 6. Harper selected the blue one. She began drawing again. Vanessa watched the pencil move. The same curve appeared. 3 sections, angled against an imaginary wind. "Mr. Perry." Jagger turned. Vanessa opened her leather bag and removed a business card. She held it out. Jagger did not take it immediately. "What is it?" "An address." "I can see that. Come there tomorrow at 8. Jagger looked at the card, then at Vanessa. "For what?" "I want you to look at something." "What?" "A bad bench." Harper looked up. Jagger frowned. "You're offering me a job because my daughter drew a bench?" "No." "Then what are you offering?" Vanessa considered the question. "A chance for me to find out whether I'm wrong." "About what?" "Your hands." Jagger's eyes narrowed. Vanessa extended the card again. "Bring your hands, not your resume." For several seconds, Jagger did not move. Then he took the card. Vanessa turned. She walked toward the glass doors. This time, she did not stop. Outside, cold air struck her face. Her driver opened the rear door of a black sedan. Vanessa entered. "Home?" he asked. She looked through the station windows. Jagger stood beneath the fluorescent lights. He was reading her business card. Harper leaned against his arm. Vanessa could not see his expression, but Jagger could see every word printed beneath her name. Vanessa Whitmore, Chief Executive Officer. Whitmore Civic Design. He read it twice, then a third time. Harper looked at him. "Who's Vanessa?" Jagger stared through the glass at the sedan pulling away. He thought about the curved wall in Harper's drawing, the strange questions, the way the woman had studied his hands, and the sentence she had left behind. "Bring your hands, not your resume." Jagger placed the card in his wallet. Behind the last $18.42. For the first time in 19 days, something had appeared that he had not planned for. Jagger did not know whether it was an opportunity. He did not know whether it was pity. He only knew that a CEO had walked out of the station, stopped, and come back. And tomorrow morning, Jagger Perry would have to decide whether he was willing to do the same with his own life. Jagger read Vanessa Whitmore's business card 6 times before sunrise. At 2:14 a.m., he decided he was not going. At 3:07, he changed his mind. At 4:26, after watching Harper sleep with her knees pulled beneath the brown work jacket, he decided again that he would tear the card in half. He had met people who liked poor families, not poor families themselves, their stories, their photographs, the brief feeling of goodness that came from buying someone dinner and telling coworkers about it on Monday morning. Jagger had once watched a church volunteer hand a homeless man a sandwich and ask him to wait before eating because she wanted a picture for the church's social media page. The man had smiled. Jagger remembered the smile. He also remembered the man's eyes. At 5:35, Jagger folded his jacket. Harper sat up. "You're doing the forehead thing." Jagger stopped. "What forehead thing?" She pressed 2 fingers between her eyebrows. "This. I don't do that. You've been doing it all night. You were asleep. I woke up." Jagger placed Vanessa's card on the seat. Harper looked at it. "Bad bench lady. That's what we're calling her. I don't know her last name. It's printed right there." Harper leaned closer. "Whitmore." "Exactly. Bad bench Whitmore." Jagger shook his head. "You're going to school, and you're going to see the bench." Jagger put the card back in his wallet. "I haven't decided." Harper stood and pulled on her backpack. "You put your good shirt on." Jagger looked down. The shirt was gray, buttoned at the collar, and only slightly wrinkled after being folded inside his backpack. "It's my clean shirt. You wear the blue one when you're not trying." Jagger stared at her. "Bathroom. Now." Harper grinned. By 7:04, he had walked Harper to school. At the entrance, she stopped. "Don't let her make you fix it for free." Jagger raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me. The bench. Go to class. Ask the price first." Harper. "That's what you tell me at stores." Jagger pointed towards the doors. She walked backward. Ask the price. School. Harper disappeared inside. Jagger stood on the sidewalk for several seconds. Then he looked at Vanessa's card. Whitmore Civic Design was nearly 4 miles away. Bus fare would cost money. Jagger began walking. The morning air cut through his gray shirt. He kept his brown jacket zipped and moved quickly, following directions on his phone until the battery dropped to 12%. At 7:43, he reached a converted industrial district south of downtown. The building was not what he expected. Whitmore Civic Design occupied an old brick warehouse with enormous black-framed windows. Through the glass, Jagger could see drafting tables, metal-framed sheets of plywood, and several full-scale structures that looked like pieces of buildings waiting to be assembled. He stopped across the street. People entered carrying coffee. Clean boots, laptop bags, employee badges. Jagger looked down at his own boots. The left heel still hurt from yesterday's run. For 1 second, he imagined walking away. He could tell Harper Vanessa had changed her mind. Or the address was wrong. Or the bad bench had already been fixed. Harper would know. She always knew. Jagger crossed the street. The receptionist looked up when he entered. "Can I help you? I'm here to see Vanessa Whitmore." "Do you have an appointment?" Jagger removed the card. "She told me 8 o'clock. The receptionist looked at him, then the card. "Name?" "Jagger Perry." Before she could call anyone, a voice came from behind him. "You're early." Jagger turned. Vanessa wore dark slacks, a white shirt, and no coat. She carried a tablet beneath one arm. Jagger checked the wall clock. 7:56. 4 minutes. That's early. Depends where you worked. Vanessa studied him. "Come with me." She did not take him upstairs. Jagger had expected an office, a glass conference room, questions about his employment gap. Instead, Vanessa led him through 2 heavy doors into the fabrication area. The smell reached him first. Wood dust, metal, adhesive, cut lumber. Jagger stopped walking. For 19 days, every room he entered had reminded him of something he lacked. A bedroom, a kitchen, and a dress. This room reminded him of something he knew. A table saw screamed somewhere behind a partition. A worker guided aluminum tubing through a bending machine. Large drawings were pinned to a wall. Jagger's eyes moved automatically. Measurements, connections, material notes. He had not realized how hungry he was for a language that made sense. "Vanessa." A man in a navy quarter-zip approached. He was in his early 50s, with the silver beginning at his temples. "Richard Hayes," Vanessa said. "Operations manager." Richard looked at Jagger. "Good morning." "Morning." Richard turned to Vanessa. "Review meeting is upstairs." "I know. It's 8. "I know that too." Richard glanced at Jagger again. "Who's this?" "Jagger Perry." The answer did not satisfy him. Vanessa continued walking. Richard followed. "Is he a vendor?" "No." "Applicant? Not exactly." "Consultant," Jagger looked at Vanessa. "I'd also like to know what I am." Vanessa stopped beside a wooden bench. "You're looking at this." The bench was 6 feet long, built from laminated ash slats over a dark metal frame. At first glance, it looked finished, expensive, clean. Jagger walked around it. "What's wrong with it?" Vanessa asked. Richard crossed his arms. Vanessa Engineering already documented the failure. "I didn't ask engineering." Jagger crouched. He pressed his thumb against one slat, then another. He looked beneath the seat. "Can I touch it?" Vanessa nodded. Jagger ran his hand along a joint. He pressed down. The wood shifted slightly. Moisture. Richard's expression changed. Jagger looked at him. "This wood was installed too wet. Kiln certification says otherwise." Certification isn't the bench. Jagger pressed the slat again. Outside edge dried faster, interior moved after assembly. He pointed beneath the frame. Your joint angle is wrong. Richard stepped closer. It's according to the drawing. Then the drawing's wrong. Silence. Vanessa watched Richard's face. Jagger moved to the other side. And that support is turned? Richard crouched. It isn't. Grain direction. Jagger pointed. Load it repeatedly, and it'll split here. He touched a spot near the mounting point. Richard examined it. Vanessa asked, how long? Depends on use. Estimate? Public installation? Yes. 6 months, maybe 8. Richard stood. Our structural model gave it 3 years. Jagger shrugged. Then asked the model to sit on it. Vanessa smiled. Richard did not. Can you fix it? She asked. Jagger looked at her. What's the price? Vanessa blinked. Jagger thought of Harper. Ask the price first. I'm not doing 3 hours of work so you can tell someone you helped a homeless man. Richard's head turned sharply. Vanessa remained still. I never said you were homeless. You saw us at the station. Yes. You saw the security officer. Yes. You reached for your phone. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Jagger continued. I know that movement. Hotel, shelter, assistant. Somebody who makes a call and solves the uncomfortable thing. Richard looked between them. Vanessa placed her tablet on the work table. $32 an hour. Jagger said nothing. 3-hour paid skills assessment. Vanessa continued. No promise of employment. Tax paperwork. Required. Cash? No. Then I need an address for payroll. Richard opened his mouth. Vanessa answered first. Mailing address can be arranged through our temporary worker processor. Jagger studied her. 3 hours. 3. 32. Yes. Tools. Hours. Jagger removed his jacket. Show me the tool cage. For the next 3 hours he barely spoke. He disassembled the damaged section. Richard remained nearby longer than necessary. Jagger knew he was being watched. He did not care. His hands remembered. Measure twice. Check the material. Never force a joint because a drawing says 2 pieces should fit. At 9:18, Jagger requested a moisture meter. At 9:46, he rejected 2 replacement slats. At 10:11, he changed the support orientation. Then he reached the failed joint. Jagger stared at it. A memory surfaced. An alley behind Branson Exhibit Works. A man sitting on an overturned crate. Scrap paper. Coffee in a foam cup. Don't fight the wind, man. Give it somewhere to go. Jagger selected 3 smaller pieces of ash. He cut shallow angles. Instead of forcing a single connection, he built a subtle, segmented curve. Richard stepped closer. That's not in the repair spec. No. Then why are you doing it? Because your repair spec created the first failure. Richard looked toward Vanessa. Vanessa said nothing. At 10:58, Jagger tightened the final connection. He stepped back. Done. Richard tested the seat. Then again. His expression was unreadable. Vanessa did not look at the bench. She was staring at the curved joint. Where did you learn that? Jagger wiped sawdust from his hands. Don't remember. Try. He frowned. Why? Try. Something in Vanessa's voice had changed. Jagger looked at the curve. Guy used to come around Branson. Employee. No. Name, Jagger searched his memory. Danny, maybe. Vanessa's face lost color. Jagger continued slowly. He'd ask for scrap wood, drew things on whatever paper we gave him. Vanessa gripped the edge of the work table. What was his last name? Jagger closed his eyes. A signature on a bus schedule, a coffee cup, a thin man laughing beside a loading dock. Then the name returned. Whitmore. Vanessa did not move. Jagger looked at her. I think his name was Caleb Whitmore. Richard's arms dropped to his sides. The fabrication floor continued around them. Machines, footsteps, metal striking metal. But Vanessa heard none of it. For 13 years she had trained herself not to turn back. Now, a homeless carpenter stood in her workshop, his hands resting beside a curved wooden joint, speaking the name of the brother she had left waiting near a bus station. Vanessa had been 27 when Caleb came home from the army. For the first 3 weeks, she believed everything would return to normal. Caleb still laughed too loudly at bad television. He still put hot sauce on eggs. He still called Vanessa V when he wanted something and Vanessa Louise Whitmore when he wanted to annoy her. But he no longer sat with his back to a door. He checked windows twice before sleeping, sometimes 3 times. At restaurants, a dropped tray could turn his face pale before anyone else noticed the sound. Vanessa saw these things. She simply did not know how to see them correctly. So she did what Vanessa Whitmore always did when something frightened her. She made a plan. She found Caleb an apartment. She paid 6 months of rent in advance. She introduced him to a contractor who needed a warehouse supervisor. She created a spreadsheet for his expenses. When Caleb missed work, Vanessa called his manager. When he disappeared for 2 days, Vanessa drove through neighborhoods looking for him. When he returned, she asked where he had been. Caleb usually answered with silence. "You can't keep doing this," she told him once. "I know." "Then stop." Caleb had looked at her for a long time. Vanessa remembered his answer because she had hated it. If knowing how to stop was the same as stopping V, nobody would need help. At the time, she thought he was making excuses. Years passed. Caleb lost the apartment. Vanessa found another. He left the warehouse job. Vanessa found him work with a delivery company. He stopped answering his phone. Vanessa bought him another phone. Every act of help became a transaction in her mind. I did this. Why didn't you do that? I paid this. Why did you lose that Vanessa loved her brother? She simply began measuring that love with results. The last time Caleb called her in winter, she was sitting at her kitchen table, surrounded by presentation boards. Whitmore Civic Design was not yet a major firm. Vanessa had 12 employees. 1 office, too much debt. The next morning, she was scheduled to present a public space proposal that could keep the company alive. Her phone rang at 10:38 p.m. Caleb. She stared at the screen before answering. "Where are you?" "Hi to you too." "Caleb." There was noise behind him. An announcement, a bus engine. Vanessa closed her eyes. "Where are you?" "Near the station." "Which station?" He did not answer. Vanessa stood. "Did you leave the apartment again?" "V. I paid through March." "I know." "You had a job." "I know." "Then why are you at a bus station?" Caleb was quiet. Vanessa remembered looking at the presentation boards. She remembered the clock. She remembered being tired. "I can't keep turning back every time you leave," she said. Caleb breathed into the phone. Then he said, "Maybe one day you'll turn back because you saw me, not because I called." Vanessa said nothing. The call ended. She did not go. The next morning, Vanessa won the contract. 8 months later, a hospital in Oklahoma contacted the family. Caleb had died after an untreated infection became severe. He was 35. For 13 years, Vanessa had told herself there was no guarantee she could have changed anything. It was true. That was the cruelest part. Caleb might still have left. He might still have refused treatment. He might still have died. But Vanessa had finally learned that uncertainty did not erase absence. Now, inside the Whitmore Civic Design fabrication shop, Jagger Perry stood beside a repaired bench and spoke Caleb's name. Vanessa stared at him. "How did you know my brother?" Jagger looked uncomfortable. "I didn't know him." "You just said his name." "I said a man used to come around the shop. That was my brother." Jagger glanced at Richard. Richard understood. "I'll check the test paperwork." He walked away. Vanessa waited until he was gone. "Tell me." Jagger picked up a brush and swept sawdust from the work table. "There isn't much to tell." "Let me decide that." The sharpness in Vanessa's voice made Jagger stop. He placed the brush down. "People came behind Branson sometimes," he said. "Scrap collectors, guys looking for cans, people asking if we had work. And Caleb, he asked for wood. What kind? Whatever we threw out." "Why?" Jagger shrugged. "He made things." Vanessa's eyes moved toward the curved joint. "What things?" "Little models, chairs, shelters. Once he built a bridge about this long." Jagger held his hands 2 feet apart. "Out of scrap?" "Mostly." Vanessa swallowed. Caleb had studied industrial design for 1 year before joining the army. She had forgotten. No, she had not forgotten. She had placed that part of him beneath everything that came later. "Did you know he was a veteran?" "No." "Did he tell you about his family?" "No." "Did you ever ask him why he was living like that?" Jagger looked at her. "No." Vanessa frowned. "Why not?" "Because I was on lunch." She stared at him. Jagger continued. He came around noon. I had 30 minutes. I drank coffee behind the loading dock because the break room television was always too loud, and you let him stay. He wasn't bothering me. The others didn't. Some guys chased him off. "Why didn't you?" Jagger leaned against the table. "My mother used to clean offices at night." Vanessa waited. "When I was 13, I'd sit in the lobby until her shift ended. People walked past me like I was furniture. One night, a security guard asked why I was there. Before I could answer, some man in a suit said, 'He doesn't belong here.'" Jagger looked down at his hands. "He didn't ask me. He decided." Vanessa said nothing. "So, when Caleb showed up," Jagger continued, "I figured if I wanted him gone, I should at least wait until he gave me a reason." "Did he?" "No." Jagger smiled faintly. "He stole my coffee once." Vanessa's lips parted. "What?" "Whole cup. I went inside for a tape measure, came back and he was drinking it." "What did you do?" "Bought another coffee." A sound escaped Vanessa. It was not quite laughter. It hurt too much. Jagger looked at her. "Your brother was funny." Vanessa lowered her eyes. "I forgot that." The words came out before she could stop them. Jagger did not respond. Vanessa walked toward the repaired bench. She touched the segmented curve. "Did he show you this?" "Something like it." "Tell me." Jagger thought. "He drew a shelter on the back of a bus schedule." Vanessa closed her eyes. "He kept talking about wind." Jagger's voice faded into the shop sounds. "Said everybody designed walls like wind was stupid. He said wind always finds the straight path around something." Vanessa remembered Harper. Wind goes around straight things. Jagger continued. "Caleb drew overlapping sections. Said you shouldn't fight the wind. Give it somewhere else to go." "Did you keep the drawing?" "No." The answer hurt Vanessa more than it should have. "It was 13 years ago," Jagger said. "I know. I didn't know it mattered." Vanessa looked at him. "Neither did I." Silence settled between them. Then Vanessa asked, "Was he dirty?" Jagger frowned. "What?" "My brother, when he came to your shop. Was he dirty?" Jagger understood the question beneath the question. "Sometimes." "Did he smell? Sometimes." "Did he talk to himself?" Once or twice. Vanessa nodded slowly. And you let him sit there, on a crate. Why? Jagger's expression tightened. I already told you. No. You told me he didn't give you a reason to make him leave. That's the reason. Vanessa stared at him. For years, she had believed helping Caleb required a strategy. Housing, employment, appointments, schedules. Jagger Perry had given him a crate. Coffee, scrap paper. 30 minutes without questions. A place where Caleb did not have to improve before being allowed to sit down. Vanessa turned away. Her eyes burned. I kept trying to fix him. Jagger remained quiet. I thought if I found the right apartment, the right job, the right doctor, he would become my brother again. He was your brother. Vanessa looked at him sharply. Jagger did not soften the words. He was still your brother. I know that now. Maybe he knew you loved him. That's not the same as making someone feel seen. Jagger looked toward the clock. 11:23. Harper would finish school at 3. He needed the money from the skills assessment. He needed to check Megan's extension. He needed to find somewhere warm before night. Vanessa noticed his attention shift. For a moment, her old instinct returned. Write a check. Solve the visible problem. Instead, she looked at the bench. 7 days. Jagger frowned. What? Paid trial contract, 7 days in fabrication. Doing what? Prototype repair, material testing, shop support. Hours. 7 to 3:30. Pay. 28 an hour. Why less than today? Today was a specialized assessment rate. Jagger nodded. Benefits. Not on a 7-day contract. Chance of permanent work. Possible, not promised. Vanessa watched him process each answer. He was not overwhelmed with gratitude. Good. Is this because of Caleb? Jagger asked. Vanessa answered carefully. Caleb is why I looked twice. She touched the repaired joint. This is why I'm offering the contract. Jagger studied her face. If I fail, you leave after 7 days. If I do well, we have another conversation. Jagger extended his hand. Put it in writing. Vanessa looked at his hand. Then she shook it. I will. 20 minutes later, Jagger sat at a small table outside Human Resources reading every line of a temporary employment agreement. He asked 2 questions, corrected the emergency contact section, then signed his name. Jagger Perry. Not homeless father, not risk, not charity case. Temporary fabrication worker. 7 days. When he entered the shop again, Richard handed him protective glasses. Don't make Vanessa regret this. Jagger put them on. I wasn't planning to work for her regret. Richard raised an eyebrow. Jagger looked toward the damaged prototypes waiting along the wall. I'm here to work. And for the first time in 20 days, someone had given him a place where that answer was enough. On the first morning of his 7-day contract, Jagger arrived at Whitmore Civic Design at 6:38. The fabrication shop did not open until 7. Richard Hayes found him sitting on a concrete barrier outside the employee entrance eating half a peanut butter sandwich. You're early, Richard said. Jagger looked at the clock above the loading dock. 22 minutes. Vanessa said you were 4 minutes early yesterday. She has low standards. Richard stared at him. Jagger folded the sandwich wrapper. That was a joke. I know. Richard unlocked the door. I didn't think it was funny. Jagger followed him inside. The shop was quiet before the machine started. Overhead lights illuminated work tables covered with clamps, rulers, and unfinished prototypes. Jagger breathed in the smell of sawdust. For the next 8 hours he belonged somewhere. At 3:30 that would end. He would pick up Harper. They would eat whatever $18.42 had become after bus fare and food. Then, when the city grew dark, they would return to Gateway Transportation Center. Jagger kept those two lives separated. At work, nobody needed to know where he slept. By 7:15, Richard had assigned him to prototype inspection. Document defects, Richard said. Don't redesign anything. Understood. Don't modify structural pieces without approval. Understood. And if you have a question, ask. Jagger looked at him. Is there a limit? To questions. Yes. Richard almost smiled. Get to work. Jagger began with 3 outdoor seating prototypes designed for the Kansas City project Vanessa had argued about. He measured joints, checked fasteners, tested movement. At 9:20, he noticed the first problem. The bench itself was stable. The wind barrier was not. Jagger walked around the prototype twice. Then he found a roll of thin marking paper. He cut 6 narrow strips. A designer named Ashley Monroe watched him tape the strips along the bench. What are you doing? Looking at air, Ashley laughed. You can't look at air. Jagger turned on an industrial floor fan. The paper strips lifted. 3 pointed toward the seated area. Ashley stopped laughing. Jagger moved the fan 10 degrees. The strips snapped again. If this is outside, he said, wind hits the panel and gets pushed straight across the seat. We modeled airflow. Where? Software. Jagger nodded. Did the software wear a coat? Ashley crossed her arms. Excuse me. People don't sit like digital models. Richard approached. What's going on? Mr. Perry is challenging our airflow analysis with paper. Jagger pointed at the strips. Paper doesn't know who designed the bench. Richard looked at them. The fan continued blowing. One strip repeatedly struck the backrest. Richard turned the fan off. The simulation accounted for prevailing wind. Wind doesn't read reports. Ashley sighed. This is ridiculous. Richard looked at Jagger. Can you repeat the test? Yes. Document it. Ashley opened her mouth. Richard raised one hand. Document it. By lunch, 4 people were standing around the prototype. Jagger changed fan positions. He changed heights. He placed a weighted jacket on the bench to show how fabric altered airflow around a seated body. The problem remained. Vanessa arrived at 12:17. What did I miss? Richard handed her the test sheet. Paper. Vanessa looked at him. Paper. Richard pointed at Jagger. Apparently, we've been overcomplicating air. Jagger was adjusting another strip. Vanessa watched the test. The paper lifted. The wind crossed the exact location where a person's neck and face would be. Vanessa looked toward Ashley. Simulation? Within accepted parameters. Jagger turned off the fan. Accepted by who? Ashley stared at him. Vanessa intervened. Jagger, he nodded. Sorry. But Vanessa understood the question. She looked at the bench. Run the test on the other models. Richard checked the clock. That changes today's schedule. Then change today's schedule. By 3:30, Jagger had found similar airflow problems in 2 additional prototypes. Richard did not praise him. He handed Jagger a new inspection sheet. Tomorrow. Jagger took it. 7. 7? I'll be here. Richard looked at him for a moment. I believe you. The words should have felt good. Instead, they hurt, because in less than 3 hours, Jagger would be sitting beneath fluorescent lights at Gateway pretending not to be tired. He collected Harper from school. She ran toward him holding a worksheet. I got 10 out of 10. Math. Spelling. Then, why are there numbers? Because teachers like confusing children. Jagger took the paper. 10 out of 10. I sit to that. I'm verifying. Harper studied his face. You had a good day. Jagger looked at her. Eyebrow thing? No. What thing? You look less old. I'm 38. Ancient? They stopped at a small grocery store. Jagger bought bread, peanut butter, 2 bananas, and a carton of milk Harper could drink before they returned to the station. That night, he slept 11 minutes at a time. The second workday was harder. The third was worse. Jagger's body began collecting exhaustion. His hands remained steady. His eyes did not. At 2:48 on the third afternoon, he nearly measured a cut from the wrong edge. He caught himself before touching the saw. Richard noticed. "You okay?" "Yes." That answer came fast. "I'm fine." Richard looked at the workpiece. "You don't make measurement mistakes." "I didn't make one." "You almost did." "Almost isn't a cut." Richard said nothing. Jagger completed the shift. At Gateway that night, Officer Dennis Cole walked past at 11:03. He looked at Harper, then Jagger. "Cold tonight. We're good." Dennis looked at the brown jacket wrapped around Harper. Jagger wore only his gray shirt. Dennis walked away. 10 minutes later he returned, carrying a paper cup. "Coffee machine made 2. Jagger looked at him. "There isn't a coffee machine behind your desk." Dennis held out the cup. "Then it's a miracle." Jagger took it. "Thank you." Dennis nodded. He did not remove the black notebook from his pocket. On the fourth morning, Harper coughed. Jagger touched her forehead. "You warm. I'm wearing your jacket." "Harper." "I'm okay." Her forehead felt normal. Jagger walked her to school. "Tell Miss Donnelly if you feel sick." "I won't." That wasn't optional. Harper sighed. "Fine." At 10:42, Harper's temperature reached 101.3 degrees. The school office called Jagger. His phone sat inside his backpack in an employee locker. The battery had died at 9:56. At 11:05, the school called again. At 11:19, Miss Donnelly tried the old Chippewa Street number listed as an emergency contact. Disconnected. At 11:31, the school nurse called Megan Foster after finding her name on a recent family support document. Megan called Whitmore Civic Design. The receptionist found Richard. Richard found Jagger beneath a prototype tightening a frame connection. "Jagger, give me 30 seconds. Your daughter's school called." Jagger's wrench stopped. "What?" "She's sick." Jagger slid out so quickly his shoulder struck the frame. "How sick? Fever? How long ago?" "I don't know." Jagger ran toward the lockers. He found his phone. Black screen. "No." He pressed the power button. Nothing. "Damn it." Richard followed. "We're in the middle of a scheduled test." Jagger shoved the phone into his backpack. "My daughter is 8. I understand, but you need to notify me before leaving the floor." "I'm notifying you." "Jagger." Jagger turned. For 4 days, he had swallowed every suspicious look, every whisper, every question about why Vanessa had brought him into the shop. But Harper had been sick for nearly an hour, while he stood 15 minutes away believing she was safe. "I have to go." Richard's face hardened. "Then go." Jagger left. He reached the school at 12:07. Harper was curled on a cot in the nurse's office. Her face was flushed. When she saw him, she tried to sit. "Hey, Dad." Jagger knelt beside her. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "My phone." "It's okay." "No." Jagger touched her forehead. "It isn't." He took Harper to a community clinic. A nurse examined her. Viral infection. Fluids. Rest. Monitor the fever. Jagger sat beside Harper while she slept in the clinic chair. At 2:16, his phone finally turned on after borrowing a charger. 3 missed calls. 1 voicemail from Richard. Jagger did not listen to it. Back at Whitmore Civic Design, Richard completed an incident report. Temporary employee left scheduled testing before shift completion. He stared at the sentence, then signed his name. At 4:40, Vanessa requested Jagger's temporary employment file. She read Richard's report. then the emergency contact section, then the address. Vanessa recognized it. She opened her computer, typed the address. The St. Louis Public Library appeared on the screen. Vanessa leaned back. For several seconds, she said nothing. She remembered Jagger's gray shirt, his exhaustion, the measurement he had almost taken from the wrong edge, Harper's yellow backpack, the metal seats at Gateway. Vanessa opened her desk drawer. Inside was Harper's first drawing. She had made a copy before returning the original, the bus station, the curved wall, the empty chair. Vanessa stared at it. Then she picked up her coat. At 8:52 that evening, Jagger sat beneath the lights of Gateway Transportation Center with Harper asleep against his side. He did not know whether he still had a job. He did not know that Vanessa had discovered his false address. And he did not see her standing outside the glass doors, watching him wrap his only jacket around his daughter before settling into a metal chair for another sleepless night. This time, Vanessa did not need a drawing to make her turn back. She had finally seen the truth. Vanessa remained outside the glass doors for nearly 4 minutes. She had stood in front of city council's investors and angry contractors without wondering where to put her hands. Now, she kept one hand inside her coat pocket because she did not trust herself not to reach for her phone. Jagger sat beneath the station lights. Harper was curled against him, wrapped in his brown work jacket. Her faded yellow backpack rested between her shoes. Jagger wore only his gray shirt. Every few minutes his head lowered, then lifted. He looked toward the doors, the information counter, the clock. Harper, always Harper. Vanessa understood why he had almost measured from the wrong edge. The man had been working 8 hours after sleeping in pieces on a metal chair. She entered the station. Jagger saw her immediately. His face changed, not surprise, defense. Vanessa approached. "How is Harper?" "Fever's down." "Good." Jagger looked at her coat, then toward the glass doors. "You followed me." "No." "Then this is a strange place for a CEO to spend Wednesday night. I checked your employment file." Jagger's jaw tightened. Vanessa continued. "The address you provided is the public library." Harper moved against his shoulder. Jagger lowered his voice. "You came here to fire me." "No." "Richard's report. I read it. I left the floor. Your daughter was sick. I left without completing the test." Vanessa stared at him. "You think I'm here to discuss a prototype?" "I think people with jobs usually talk to workers about work. And people sleeping in bus stations." Jagger's expression hardened. Vanessa immediately regretted the question. That came out wrong. It came out clear. Jagger. Harper's sleeping. Vanessa looked at the child. Harper's cheeks were still slightly flushed. "There's a hotel 6 blocks from here." Jagger said nothing. "I can book a room for a week." "No," Vanessa blinked. "You didn't hear the offer." "I heard hotel. 1 week." "No." "Jagger, your daughter has a fever." "Had. She needs a bed. I know what she needs." "Then why are you refusing?" Jagger stood carefully. He moved Harper's head against the backpack. "Because I know how this works." Vanessa crossed her arms. "Explain it. You book a room." "Yes." "We sleep there." "Yes." 7 days later, the reservation ends. "We can address that later." Jagger nodded. "There." "What?" "That sentence." Vanessa frowned. "We can address that later." "What's wrong with it?" "Later is easy when you own the calendar." Vanessa stared at him. Jagger continued quietly. "You don't know me. You saw my daughter draw something that reminded you of your brother. Then you found out I knew him. Now, every time you look at me, you see a chance to do something you didn't do 13 years ago. That's unfair." Is it? Yes. Then tell me I'm wrong. Vanessa opened her mouth. Nothing came. Jagger looked away. I don't want to be a sad thing you fixed before Christmas. Vanessa's face tightened. You think that's what I'm doing? I think you don't know yet. Anger rose in her. And while I figure out my motives, Harper sleeps on steel. Jagger stepped closer. Don't use my daughter to win an argument. I'm not trying to win. You are always trying to win. You've known me 4 days. I've worked for people like you 12 years. Vanessa laughed once. There was no humor in it. People like me. People who think having resources means every answer belongs to them. I offered a hotel room, and I said no. Why? Because kindness doesn't give you ownership of my decisions. The words struck Vanessa with unexpected force. She remembered Caleb, the apartments, the jobs, the spreadsheets, every conversation that had begun with, I found you something. Every time she had called control love because control was easier to measure. Vanessa looked away. Jagger watched her. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. I don't know how to do this. Jagger frowned. Do what? Help someone without taking over. The station announcement interrupted them. A recorded voice listed an early departure. Neither moved. Vanessa sat on the metal chair across from Jagger. I was 27 when Caleb came home, she said. Jagger remained standing. I thought problems had solutions. If someone needed housing, find housing. If they needed work, find work. Those things matter. I know. Vanessa looked at her hands. But I made every solution a test. Jagger slowly sat. If Caleb lost something I gave him, I treated it like he had wasted me. Vanessa swallowed. The last night he called, I could hear buses behind him. Jagger looked at her. I knew he was somewhere like this. Vanessa's eyes moved across the station. I didn't go. Harper stirred. Her eyes opened slightly. Bad Bench Whitmore. Vanessa looked at her. Jagger closed his eyes. Harper. What? Vanessa's mouth twitched. Bad Bench Whitmore. Harper pushed herself upright. Dad said your name was Vanessa. I did not call her Bad Bench Whitmore. You didn't stop me. Jagger rubbed his forehead. How's your head? Heavy? Fever? I don't know, I'm 8. Jagger touched her forehead. Harper looked at Vanessa. Why are you here? Vanessa hesitated. Your father and I were talking. No, why did you come back? Jagger looked at his daughter. Harper. At the station, the first night. Vanessa became still. Harper pulled the jacket closer. You left, then you came back. Vanessa looked through the glass doors. A black sedan passed outside. 13 years disappeared. She heard Caleb's voice. Maybe one day you'll turn back because you saw me. Because once, Vanessa said I didn't. Harper waited. Vanessa looked at her. My brother needed me to turn back. I kept going. Did he get okay? Vanessa felt the question in her chest. No. Harper lowered her eyes. I'm sorry. Thank you. Harper leaned against Jagger again. Within minutes, her eyes closed. Jagger watched Vanessa. She'll remember that. I know. You could have lied. I've been lying to myself long enough. For a while, neither spoke. Officer Dennis Cole stood near the information counter. He had noticed Vanessa. He had also noticed Jagger's posture. Dennis stayed where he was. Vanessa finally said, We have an unused restroom at the rear of the fabrication building. Jagger's expression changed. No. Listen first. He remained silent. It's not a hotel. Still sounds like a room. It has a sofa, sink, bathroom. For how long? 7 nights. And then, the agreement ends. Jagger studied her. Vanessa continued. The room needs work. Cabinet hinges broken. Sink leaks. One wall needs patching. You can use it for 7 nights if you repair it outside paid working hours. You're offering housing for labor. I'm offering a written temporary use agreement. Insurance. Richard will hate that you asked. Richard isn't here. Yes, insurance can review it. Harper allowed on the property overnight. I'll confirm that in writing. Access and separate rear entrance. Does this affect my 7-day work contract? No. If you fire me tomorrow, the room agreement remains for 7 nights. Vanessa watched Jagger process every condition. This time, she did not interrupt. She did not tell him Harper needed it. She did not reach for her phone. Jagger looked at his daughter, then at the metal seats. Written agreement. Yes. No photographs. Vanessa frowned. Why would there be photographs? You'd be surprised. No photographs. No social media. Agreed. No company story about helping a homeless employee. Agreed. Jagger extended his hand. 7 nights. Vanessa shook it. 7 nights. At 10:06, Vanessa called her legal director. At 10:41, a temporary property use agreement arrived by email. Jagger read it on Vanessa's phone, every line, twice. At 11:03, Jagger lifted Harper's yellow backpack. He carried 1 bag. Vanessa carried nothing until Jagger handed her the second. It was a small gesture, but she understood. Help had been offered. Now he was choosing the shape of it. Near the doors, Officer Dennis Cole approached. Jagger stopped. Dennis looked at Harper, then at the bags. You catching a bus? Jagger glanced at Vanessa. No. Dennis nodded. Good. His hand moved toward the pocket containing the black notebook. For a second, Jagger thought Dennis would write another date. Instead, the officer removed the notebook. He opened it, found a page, then drew 1 line through the latest entry. Jagger said nothing. Dennis closed the book. Take care of the kid. I will. Jagger followed Vanessa through the glass doors. Cold air met them. Harper held his hand. For 20 nights, Jagger Perry had walked into Gateway Transportation Center, calculating how long he could keep his daughter warm before someone asked them to leave. Tonight, he walked out carrying the same 2 bags. The same $18 wallet, now lighter. The same fear. Nothing had been magically solved. He still had no permanent address. He still had 6 days left on a temporary work contract. But somewhere across the city was a small room with a broken hinge, a leaking sink, and a door. For 7 nights, that door could close behind them, and for the first time since the blue-capped key had stopped working, Jagger and Harper were leaving the station without pretending they had a bus to catch. The room was smaller than Jagger expected. Vanessa opened a gray metal door at the rear of the Whitmore Civic design and reached for the light switch. A fluorescent tube flickered twice. Then the room appeared. 1 brown sofa, a sink with a stained counter, 2 metal cabinets, a small bathroom behind a folding door. Someone had left an old coffee maker beside a stack of paper cups. Harper stepped inside. She said nothing. Jagger placed the bags beside the sofa. Vanessa remained near the entrance. The heating works, she said. Facilities checked it. Jagger looked at the ceiling vent. Warm air moved quietly. The sink. Leaks beneath the cabinet. Electrical. Fine. Smoke detector, Vanessa pointed. Jagger looked up. Battery. Tested this afternoon. He nodded. Vanessa almost laughed. You inspect every room you enter. Every room my daughter sleeps in. Harper walked to the door. She looked at the silver lock, then turned it. Click. The deadbolt moved into place. Harper unlocked it, then locked it again. Click. Jagger watched her. Bug. Harper opened the door, closed it, locked it. Click. Harper. She looked at him. It locks from inside. I see that. No one else has a key, Vanessa answered. Facilities has an emergency master key. Harper's hand remained on the lock. But people can't just come in. No. Harper turned the lock again. Click. Her shoulders lowered. Jagger felt something break quietly inside his chest. He had spent 20 nights measuring his success by whether Harper ate, whether she stayed warm, whether her school clothes looked clean. He had not understood that his 8-year-old daughter had learned to sleep without a door, or that somewhere inside her small body, safety had become a sound. Click. Harper walked to the sofa. Can I sleep here? Jagger cleared his throat. That's generally what sofas are for. You always say they're for sitting. Tonight, I'm flexible. Harper removed her yellow backpack. Vanessa stepped backward. I'll leave you. Jagger nodded. Thank you. The words were difficult. Vanessa seemed to understand. 7 nights, she said. 7? Work starts at 7. I know. Richard will expect you on time. He always looks like he expects disappointment. Vanessa smiled. That's just his face. From the sofa, Harper laughed. Vanessa left. Jagger locked the door. Click. Harper looked at him. Do it again. Jagger unlocked the door, then locked it. Click. Harper smiled. Good. They ate peanut butter sandwiches on the sofa. Harper drank water from a paper cup. At 9:16, she fell asleep with her head against Jagger's leg. He waited 20 minutes. Then another 10. Jagger carried her to the far end of the sofa and covered her with his brown jacket. He entered the bathroom, closed the folding door, sat on the floor. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, Jagger put both hands over his face. His shoulders moved. No sound came out. He had not cried when the Ford Escape disappeared from the parking lot. He had not cried when the landlord changed the lock. He had not cried during 19 nights at Gateway. There had always been something to do: find food, charge the phone, check the bus, watch Harper. A man could delay grief when survival kept giving him instructions. But now there was a locked door. Warm air. Harper sleeping 10 feet away. Jagger's body no longer knew what emergency to obey, so it stopped. He cried for Lauren, for the blue-capped key still inside his wallet, for the bagel Harper had broken exactly in half, for 13 minutes late, for $18.42, for the fact that his daughter knew how to identify his good shirt. Jagger pressed his palms against his eyes. Then he whispered, I'm trying Lauren. The room did not answer. It did not need to. At 5:21 the next morning, Jagger woke on the floor. He had slept almost 8 hours. His neck hurt. His left leg was numb. He felt better than he had in months. Harper was still sleeping. Jagger repaired the leaking sink before work. The cabinet hinge took 6 minutes. At 6:58 he entered the fabrication shop. Richard looked at the clock. 2 minutes early. Vanessa would call that impressive. Vanessa has low standards. Jagger looked at him. Richard's expression remained serious. Then Jagger realized Richard had made a joke. That was almost funny. Get to work. The public seating project had changed. Vanessa wanted the team to reconsider the wind barriers after Jagger's paper strip test. At 9:36, people gathered around a full-scale prototype. Ashley Monroe controlled the digital model. Richard reviewed material specifications. Jagger stood near the physical bench. Vanessa entered. Show me what we're missing. Ashley displayed airflow diagrams. Prevailing winter wind enters from the northwest. The current panel redirects approximately 68%. Jagger looked at the screen. Where's the person? Ashley pointed to a gray digital figure. There. That's not a person. It's a body model. No coat. Ashley sighed. Jagger. No bag either. What does a bag have to do with airflow? Nothing. Then why mention it? Because people carry things. Richard crossed his arms. Explain. Jagger walked to the bench. If somebody's waiting 10 minutes, they sit here. He chose the center. If they're tired, they sit near the end. He moved. Why? Vanessa asked. So they can lean. Jagger placed his shoulder against the side panel. If they have bags, bags go here. He pointed beneath the bench. If there's a kid sits away from the door. He indicated the inner seat. And the adult, Jagger, sat beside the imaginary child. Here. The paper strips lifted when Ashley activated the fan. 3 struck Jagger's shoulder and neck. He looked at Richard. That's where your wind goes. Ashley frowned. You're using one very specific scenario. Jagger stood. No. You're using one very specific scenario. What scenario? Person with nothing. The room became quiet. Jagger pointed toward the digital figure. No bag, no child, no bad knee, no reason to lean, no reason to stay longer than the schedule says. Ashley looked at the screen. Jagger continued. You're designing for somebody who enters exactly when the bus arrives. Richard said, Transit facilities aren't shelters. I didn't say they were. You're designing around people sleeping on benches. Jagger looked at him. Sometimes they're the same person for one night. Nobody spoke. Jagger thought of Gateway, a mother in blue scrubs crying in the assistant's office, the elderly man with medical papers. People did not always become homeless in a dramatic collapse. Sometimes a paycheck arrived Friday and an eviction happened Thursday. Sometimes a transmission failed. Sometimes a spouse died at 1:18 in the morning, and 2 years later the math still had not recovered. Vanessa walked toward the prototype. Move the barrier. Ashley blinked. What? Use Jagger's segmented angle. That changes the visual profile. Then change it. Richard looked at Vanessa. Kansas City already rejected the higher fabrication cost. Jagger examined the panel. It doesn't need to cost more. Richard turned. How? Shorter sections. More joints means more labor. Not if they're modular. Jagger picked up a pencil. He drew directly on a scrap sheet. 3 repeated sections. Same cut, same angle, damage 1, replace 1. Richard stepped closer. Ashley joined him. Vanessa watched Jagger's hand. The shape appeared again. The curve, Caleb's idea, Harper's drawing. But this time Jagger was not copying a memory. He was building forward from it. Richard studied the sketch. Possible. Ashley nodded reluctantly. Maybe. Vanessa looked at Jagger. You're presenting this. His pencil stopped. Presenting where? City Review. No. Vanessa blinked. No, I build things. You just explained the problem. To 6 people. The City Review has 12. That's twice as bad. Ashley laughed. Richard looked away, hiding a smile. Vanessa remained serious. They need to hear why the design matters. Then you tell them. They've heard me. You're the CEO. Exactly. Jagger placed the pencil down. I don't do rooms with polished tables. You repaired a bench in front of Richard? Bench didn't interrupt. Richard said, I considered it. Jagger ignored him. Vanessa stepped closer. 3 days. For what? To prepare. I said no, and I heard you. Then why are we still talking? Because your hands proved you understand the problem. Vanessa tapped the drawing. Now your voice has to prove the rest. Jagger stared at her. On the work table, the 6 strips of paper moved gently beneath the ventilation system. 3 days. Jagger had spent 20 days trying to keep the world from asking questions about his life. Now, Vanessa Whitmore wanted him to enter a city meeting and explain what a bus station felt like to someone who needed more from a bench than a place to wait. Jagger looked at the sketch, then at the prototype. "I don't own a suit," Vanessa smiled. "I didn't ask you to bring a suit." Jagger immediately recognized the sentence. He shook his head. "Don't say it. Bring your hands, Vanessa, and your voice." Jagger looked toward Richard. "Is she always like this?" Richard nodded. "Unfortunately." Vanessa walked away. Jagger checked the meeting schedule left on the table. 3 days. For the first time in his life, he was being asked to speak in a room where people made decisions about places like Gateway Transportation Center. The problem was simple. Jagger knew how to make wood carry weight. He had no idea whether a room full of powerful people would let his words do the same. Jagger wrote his first speech on the back of a grocery receipt. It lasted 11 seconds. "My name is Jagger Perry. I've worked in fabrication for 12 years. The current wind barrier redirects air toward seated passengers. We recommend a modular segmented design." He read it twice, then folded the receipt. Harper looked up from the sofa. "That's bad." Jagger stared at her. "You didn't even hear it. You made your work voice." "What work voice?" Harper lowered her voice. "The current wind barrier redirects air toward seated passengers." Jagger frowned. "I don't sound like that." "You do when you want people to think you know things." "I do know things." "Then why do you sound scared?" Jagger looked away. The temporary restroom was warmer than Gateway, but it still did not feel like home. Their clothes remained inside bags. Harper's 6 colored pencils stayed in the yellow backpack. Jagger had repaired the cabinet and sink, yet he refused to place anything in the cabinets. 7 nights. He remembered every time he looked at the walls. 7 nights. "I build," he said. "I don't give speeches." Harper selected the purple pencil. "You talk all the time." "To you." "Maybe pretend they're me." "A city review board is not an 8-year-old. "Good. I ask a lot of questions." Jagger smiled. Harper pulled a small index card from her school folder. She drew 1 red line, then blue, yellow, green, brown, purple, 6 lines. She pushed the card toward him. "What's this?" "My colors. I see that. When you're scared, pick one. And think harder." Jagger held the card. Harper returned to drawing. "You make everything sound simple." "I'm 8. That night, Jagger tried writing the speech again. He filled 3 pages, then crossed out nearly every sentence. The next morning, Vanessa found him at the prototype bench before 7. "You look terrible." "Good morning to you, too." "Did you prepare?" "Yes." "Show me." "No." Vanessa held out her hand. Jagger stared at it. "No." "I'm presenting the overall proposal. I need to know what you're saying." "You'll hear it at the meeting." "That's not how professional presentations work." "Then don't let me present." Vanessa lowered her hand. "You think I'm trying to control you. I think you like knowing the ending before the story starts." Vanessa considered that. "Fair." Jagger looked surprised. "But," she continued, "the board will interrupt. I know. They may challenge your experience. I have experience. They may ask why you're involved after less than a week." Jagger's jaw tightened. Vanessa noticed. "That reaction," she said. "Control it." "Which reaction?" "The one where your face tells people exactly when they've insulted you. Maybe they should know." "Not if you want them to listen to the next sentence." Jagger looked at the prototype. "Anything else?" "Yes." Vanessa stepped closer. "Don't tell them what you think they want to hear." "What do they want?" Numbers. Risk reduction, cost." "Those things matter." "They do." Vanessa touched the segmented wind barrier. "But Richard can give them numbers. She looked at Jagger. "I need you to explain what we failed to see." At 1:00 p.m., the St. Louis Municipal Review Room was colder than Jagger expected. A long, polished table filled the center. 12 seats, water bottles, microphones. Jagger stood near the wall wearing a pale blue shirt Vanessa had found in Whitmore's prototype wardrobe storage. It fit his shoulders. The sleeves were slightly short. Jagger refused the jacket. Harper's 6-color card rested in his pocket. Richard arranged cost sheets. Ashley checked the presentation. Vanessa read an email. Everyone looked as though they belonged. Jagger felt like someone had accidentally left a side door open. "Mr. Perry," he turned. A board administrator pointed toward the table. "You can sit." "I know." She walked away. Jagger remained standing. Vanessa looked at him. "Sit. I'm fine. You're making me nervous." "Good." Vanessa almost smiled. The meeting began at 1:07. For 30 minutes, Jagger listened. Material durability, maintenance cycles, projected installation costs, procurement standards. People discussed public seating without once using the word person. Then Vanessa introduced the revised wind barrier concept. Ashley displayed the digital model. Richard explained modular repair costs. Finally, Vanessa said, Jagger Perry led the physical observation work that identified the airflow issue. Every face turned. Jagger stood, his mind emptied, completely. He reached into his pocket. 6 colored lines, red, blue, yellow, green, brown, purple. Think harder. Jagger chose blue. Harper used blue for windows. He looked at the board. "The computer model isn't wrong," he said. Ashley glanced at him. Jagger continued. "It's just sitting differently than people do." A board member frowned. "What does that mean?" Jagger walked toward the prototype images. "Your model sits in the center." "That's standard." "Yes, sir." Jagger pointed. "But tired people lean." He moved his finger toward the end of the bench. "Parents put kids away from doors. People with bags keep them close. Somebody with a bad knee sits where they can stand easier." A woman near the end of the table asked, "And you determined this with paper strips?" A few people smiled. Jagger nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Not sophisticated?" "No." The smiles widened. Jagger looked at her. But the wind didn't know that. The room quieted. Richard lowered his eyes. Vanessa hid a smile behind her hand. Another board member leaned forward. "Mr. Perry, we're discussing a multi-million-dollar transit program. Are you suggesting we redesign infrastructure because some passengers are uncomfortable?" Jagger looked at him. "No, sir." "Then clarify." Jagger felt the 6-color card in his hand. He thought of Harper asleep beneath fluorescent lights. He could tell them, "My daughter slept there. My daughter had a fever there. I stayed awake there." But he did not want Harper turned into evidence. So he said, "I saw a kid sleeping on one of those benches." The room changed slightly. "Where?" someone asked. "Gateway." "Was the child unhoused?" Jagger paused. "I don't know what form somebody would have checked." The board member frowned. "I asked whether the child was homeless. And I'm saying that kid was cold." Silence. Jagger stepped closer to the table. Maybe her family lost a place that week. Maybe they were waiting on somebody. Maybe they missed a bus. He looked around the room. Public design shouldn't need somebody's whole tragedy before deciding whether wind hits a child in the face. Vanessa stopped breathing for a moment. Jagger continued. "You asked why a few degrees matter." He looked at the prototype image. "Because design tells people who we expected to be there." The board member crossed his arms. "And your proposal expects homeless individuals." Jagger shook his head. "It expects people." Nobody spoke. "People with bags. People who are tired. People who don't arrive at the perfect time. People whose life went wrong on Tuesday and haven't fixed it by Wednesday. And Jagger's voice remained calm. You don't have to turn a station into a shelter. He pointed towards the segmented barrier. But you also don't have to make discomfort a punishment for staying too long. The chairwoman looked at Richard. Cost. Richard opened the sheet. The revised design increases fabrication labor by approximately 14%. Several expressions changed. Jagger looked at the numbers. What if the sections are standardized? Richard turned. They are. No, same cut length. We need the curve. 3 angles. Jagger took a pencil. He drew on Richard's cost sheet. Repeat these. Don't custom cut each barrier. Richard leaned closer. Ashley stood. Jagger continued. Use the same 3 segments in different order depending on installation direction. Richard calculated silently. Material waste drops. Yes. Labor, jigs. Jagger drew again. 1 jig for each angle. Richard looked at Vanessa. This could work. The chairwoman raised a hand. We are not approving a system based on a sketch made during the meeting. Jagger placed the pencil down. That's fair. She looked at him. You agree. I wouldn't build from this either. A few people laughed. The chairwoman did not. Then she smiled slightly. 10 days. Vanessa straightened. Excuse me. Build 1 full prototype. Richard looked at the schedule. 10 days is aggressive. Then say no. Vanessa turned toward Jagger. He looked at the sketch. 3 angles. Repeated sections. Caleb's curve, Harper's wind wall. We can build it, Jagger said. Richard stared at him. The chairwoman nodded. 10 days. The meeting ended at 2:36. In the hallway, Richard caught Jagger's arm. You just committed my shop to a 10-day prototype. Jagger looked at his hand. Richard released him. Our shop. Jagger became still. Richard sighed. For 7 days, technically. Vanessa approached carrying the project folder. She handed it to Jagger. He did not take it. What's this? Fabrication lead packet. I'm temporary. Correct. Richard is operations manager. Correct. Jagger looked at Richard. Richard's face revealed nothing. Vanessa extended the folder. You saw the problem. Jagger looked down at Harper's 6-color card. A week earlier, he had been 13 minutes late to an interview and told he was unreliable before anyone asked what he could build. Now, a city board had given Whitmore Civic Design 10 days because Jagger Perry had stood at a polished table and refused to let a digital body speak for real people. He took the folder. 10 days. Vanessa nodded. 10. Jagger opened the first page. Tomorrow's schedule was blank. He looked at Richard. What time does the shop open? 7. Jagger shook his head. Not tomorrow. Richard raised an eyebrow. Jagger looked at the 10-day deadline. 6. At 5:52 the next morning, Jagger stood alone in the fabrication shop with the project folder open on a work table. 10 days. He wrote the number at the top of a sheet of brown shop paper. Then he divided the page into tasks. Frame, seat, wind barrier, fasteners, finish, load test, airflow test, repair test. Richard entered at 5:59. He carried 2 coffees. You said 6. Jagger looked at the clock. You made it. Richard placed 1 cup beside him. Don't sound surprised. I've learned not to trust schedules. Richard understood the reference. He did not answer. At 6:10, the rest of the small fabrication team arrived. Ashley came from design. Miguel Santos handled metalwork. Derek Lane specialized in finishing. A younger fabricator named Owen Price had been with Whitmore for 8 months. They gathered around the table. Richard stood near the back. Jagger looked at the 4 people. He had led small installation crews at Branson. That felt different. There, everyone had known him. Here, at least 2 people believed Vanessa had handed responsibility to a homeless stranger because of a dead brother. Jagger could feel it. He did not make a speech. "Miguel," he said, "what slows you down most on a steel frame?" Miguel frowned. "Bad drawings." Ashley crossed her arms. "Helpful," Miguel smiled. "Late changes." Jagger nodded. "Derek?" "Finishing before design stops changing." "Owen," the younger man shrugged. "I can do whatever. That's not what I asked." Owen looked uncomfortable. Jagger waited. "Jigs," Owen finally said. "I'm good with the repetitive setups." Jagger pointed at him. 3 angle jigs. That's yours." Owen blinked. "Mine. Unless you lied." "No." "Good." Jagger turned to Ashley. "I need final dimensions before Miguel cuts." Ashley nodded. "By 8. 7:30. That's 40 minutes. You said bad drawings slow him down." Miguel laughed. Ashley glared at both men, then took the plans. 7:45. Jagger nodded. "Deal." Richard watched from the back. By noon, the shop had changed rhythm. Jagger moved between stations, but he did not hover. He asked questions. He checked measurements. When Owen's first jig was off by 1/16 of an inch, Jagger did not rebuild it himself. He handed Owen a square. "Find it." Owen checked, then checked again. "Stop block." "Good." "I'll fix it." "Good." Richard approached Jagger. "You knew the problem." "Yes." "Why didn't you tell him? Then I'd know how to fix a jig." Jagger looked toward Owen. "Now he does." Richard said nothing. At 2:30, Vanessa entered the shop. She found Jagger beneath the prototype frame beside Miguel. Both men were arguing about a mounting plate. "Too thick," Jagger said. "Stronger. Heavier. Stronger. We're not building a bridge." Miguel pointed at him. "You wood guys always say that until metal saves you." Vanessa looked at Richard. "Are they fighting?" "Apparently, this is collaboration." Vanessa watched Jagger laugh. It was the first time she'd heard the sound. Later that afternoon, she found Harper in the temporary restroom. Claire Benton from the library had agreed to supervise Harper there for 2 hours after school, while Jagger finished work. Harper sat at the small counter. 6 pencils surrounded a drawing. Vanessa knocked on the open door. "Bad bench Whitmore allowed in?" Harper looked up. "Maybe." Vanessa entered. "What are you drawing?" "The new station." Vanessa looked. Harper had drawn the segmented wind barrier. A purple bus waited outside. 3 figures sat inside. Near the window was the empty chair. "You still leave it?" Harper nodded. Vanessa sat beside her. "Is it for your mom?" Harper's pencil stopped. "It used to be." Vanessa looked at the child. Harper selected brown. "Who's it for now?" "I don't know yet." Vanessa felt a familiar ache. She looked toward the workshop wall separating them from Jagger. "Your father ever talk about opening his own shop?" Harper nodded. "Mom did." "Your mom?" "She had a notebook." Harper drew another line. "She wrote names for it." "What names?" "Bad ones." Vanessa smiled. "Your dad's opinion." "Mom's." Harper looked up. "Dad wanted Perry Woodworks." "That's not terrible." "Mom said it sounded like a place that makes birdhouses." Vanessa laughed. "What happened to the notebook?" "Dad has it." "Does he look at it?" Harper shook her head. "No." That evening, Vanessa found Jagger cleaning the work table. "Lauren wanted you to open a shop." Jagger's hand stopped. "You've been interviewing my daughter." "We discussed bad business names." Jagger continued cleaning. "Harper talks. So, I've noticed." Vanessa leaned against the table. "Why didn't you open the shop?" "Money." "Before." Jagger looked at her. Timing? That's a vague answer. It's my answer. Vanessa waited. Jagger put the brush down. We were going to. He looked toward the prototype. Lauren kept a notebook. Customers, equipment, rent estimates. What changed? She died. Vanessa's voice softened. I know. No, that's the answer. Jagger faced her. People kept telling me to keep moving forward. They said Lauren would have wanted that. He rubbed his thumb across the work table. But every future plan had her fingerprints on it. Vanessa understood. So, building without her felt wrong. It felt like I was finishing a life she wasn't allowed to have. Vanessa said nothing. Jagger picked up the brush. Then Branson closed. After that, survival made the decision. He walked away. On day 7, the frame was complete. Day 8, the seat passed its first load test. At 4:12 that afternoon, the segmented wind barrier was installed. Jagger ran his hand along the curved structure. 3 repeated angles. Modular sections. Caleb's old idea transformed by 13 years of forgotten memory and 10 days of practical work. Ready? Richard asked. Jagger nodded. Miguel activated the load rig. The machine pressed against the structure, 500 pounds, 700. The wood held, 900. A sound cracked through the shop. Jagger turned. The upper curved section split near the joint. The machine stopped. Nobody moved. A thin fracture ran 6 inches through the ash. Richard approached. He touched the split. We don't have time. Jagger stared at the damage. We have tonight. Testing is tomorrow morning. I know. Richard shook his head. Return to the straight panel design. No. Jagger. No. The old design passed structural and failed airflow. The city asked for a prototype. They asked for the one we presented. Richard lowered his voice. This isn't about pride. I know. Then make the professional decision. Jagger looked around. Owen, Miguel, Derek, Ashley, all exhausted. This is mine, Jagger said. Richard frowned. The failure. You didn't select the material alone. I approved the joint. Jagger, I approved it. He looked at the team. Go home. Miguel crossed his arms. No. Go. We can help. Tomorrow, maybe. Jagger pointed toward the crack. Tonight, I need to understand why I was wrong. One by one, they left. Richard was last. At the door, he stopped. 6 a.m. Jagger nodded. When the shop became quiet, Jagger removed the broken section. He tried a thicker piece. Too heavy. He changed the joint angle. Too much material. At 9:20, he drew 6 alternatives. At 10:48, he rejected all 6. At 11:36, Jagger sat on the floor. His hands hurt. The temporary room was 20 yards away. Harper slept there while Claire sat with her. Tomorrow was also the 7th night. The room agreement would end. His work trial had technically ended. The prototype was broken. Jagger opened his tool bag. A small card fell onto the concrete. 6 colored lines. Red, blue, yellow, green, brown, purple. Jagger picked it up. Harper's voice returned. When you don't have every color, you have to think harder. Jagger looked at the fractured, curved section. For 10 days, he had been trying to make one piece of wood become something it did not want to be. A curve. He remembered Caleb behind Branson Exhibit Works. Don't fight the wind, man. Give it somewhere to go. Jagger stood. He walked to the broken prototype. Then he looked at Owen's 3-angle jigs. One piece did not need to bend, not if several pieces could carry the shape together. Jagger pulled a clean sheet of shop paper onto the table. At 11:52 p.m., he began drawing again. This time, he did not draw a curve. He drew the spaces between 6 straight pieces, and suddenly, Jagger Perry understood what the bench had been trying to tell him all night. Sometimes surviving pressure was not about becoming strong enough to stop it. Sometimes you survived because you finally stopped trying to carry the entire curve alone. At 12:08 a.m., Jagger cut the first piece. Not curved, straight. 12 inches of ash with 2 angled ends. He placed it on the work table, then cut another and another, 6 pieces. Jagger arranged them beside the fractured section. The old design had demanded that one length of wood carry the entire bend. Heat, moisture, and pressure had forced the material into a shape it resisted. The new design asked less from each piece. One angle, one connection, one part of the load. Together, the 6 straight sections created the same protective curve. Jagger stared at them. "Think harder," he whispered. He reached for a clamp. At 1:16, the rear shop door opened. Jagger looked up. Richard entered wearing jeans and an old Cardinals sweatshirt. "What are you doing here?" Richard held up a paper bag. "My wife said if I was going to complain about the project all night, I should complain somewhere else." He placed the bag on the table. "Turkey sandwich." Jagger looked at it. "You came back with a sandwich." "I also brought professional expertise." "Which bag is that in?" Richard stared at him. Jagger smiled. Richard looked at the 6 pieces. "What is this?" "Not a curve." "I can see that." "Can you?" Richard stepped closer. Jagger pushed the pieces together. The segmented arc appeared. Richard's expression changed. "Separate load paths." "Yes." "More joints." "Replaceable joints." Richard touched one section. "If this fails, replace 12 inches, not 6 feet." Jagger nodded. Richard looked toward the 3 angle jigs Owen had built. "Same cuts?" "3 angles." Richard walked around the table. "You've changed the connection." "Had to." "Fastener shear. Need to calculate it." Richard removed his sweatshirt. Underneath, he wore a white t-shirt. "Move." Jagger raised an eyebrow. "What?" "You said you need calculations." "I can calculate." "Eventually." Richard took a pencil. Jagger moved aside. At 2:03, they rejected the first fastener pattern. At 2:41, Richard suggested a concealed steel plate. Jagger modified the joint. At 3:10, the prototype was ready for assembly. Richard looked at the clock. "We need people." "They need sleep." "So do you." Jagger picked up his phone. "I'll call Miguel at 5. The rear door opened again. Miguel entered. Behind him came Derek. Then Owen. Ashley walked in last, carrying 4 coffees. Jagger stared at them. "I told you to go home." Miguel shrugged. "We did. For 3 hours. My couch is comfortable." Owen looked at the pieces on the table. "You're using my jigs." "Yes." Owen smiled. "Good." Ashley handed Jagger a coffee. "I updated the digital model." Jagger frowned. "How?" "Richard texted me." Jagger looked at Richard. Richard studied the ceiling. Professional expertise. By 5:30, the fabrication shop was alive. Owen cut repeated segments. Miguel shaped steel connection plates. Derek prepared the finish. Ashley adjusted dimensions as measurements changed. Jagger moved between them. This time he was not carrying the design alone. At 7:14, Vanessa entered. She stopped near the doors. 6 people stood around the prototype. Richard was tightening a connection. Jagger held the opposite section. "What happened?" Vanessa asked. Nobody answered. Then Miguel pointed at Jagger. "He broke the bench." Jagger looked at him. Miguel continued. "Then he fixed the idea." Vanessa approached. She saw the segmented structure, not one curved piece. 6 straight sections creating a curve together. Her eyes moved to Jagger. "Caleb? Partly?" "Harper? Mostly." Vanessa smiled. "That sounds right." At 8:30, the city inspection team arrived. The prototype looked unfinished. Jagger's shirt was covered in dust. Richard had changed back into his quarter zip but had forgotten to comb his hair. The chairwoman from the review meeting walked around the structure. "You had 10 days." "Yes, ma'am," Jagger said. "This looks different from your presentation." "Yes." "Why?" "The first version failed." Richard closed his eyes. Vanessa said nothing. The chairwoman looked at Jagger. "You are telling me that before we begin testing?" "Yes." "Most contractors don't volunteer that information." "I don't know what most contractors do." She almost smiled. "What did you change?" Jagger pointed at the barrier. "First version forced one piece to carry the curve." He touched a segment. "Now each piece carries one angle. Advantage: less stress, easier replacement, standard cuts. Disadvantage: more connections." The chairwoman nodded. "Test it." The load rig activated, 500 pounds. The structure held, 700. Jagger watched the joints, 900. Owen held his breath, 1,000. No crack. Richard looked at Jagger. Jagger did not smile. "Again." The chairwoman raised an eyebrow. "You passed." "Again." The second test passed, then came airflow. Ashley positioned the industrial fan. Jagger taped thin paper strips along the seating area. The chairwoman looked at them. "Your sophisticated equipment." Jagger nodded. "Very expensive." The fan started. The strips lifted. Near the center seat, air moved gently. At the side position where Jagger had imagined a parent sitting beside a child, the strips barely touched the backrest. Ashley increased fan speed. The segmented wall redirected the strongest airflow around the rear of the structure. Richard checked the readings. Direct seated exposure reduced 31% from the original prototype. The city engineer walked behind the barrier. Maintenance Jagger removed one segment. 4 fasteners. He placed the piece on the floor. "Replace one." The engineer checked his watch. 3 minutes. Would be faster if Richard stopped talking. Richard stared at Jagger. The city engineer laughed. By 11:20, testing was complete. The chairwoman closed her folder. "Will approve 3 pilot installations." Vanessa exhaled. Ashley hugged Owen. Miguel slapped Derek's shoulder. Richard extended his hand to Jagger. Jagger looked at it, then shook. "Fabrication specialist," Vanessa said. Jagger turned. "What?" "Full-time." The shop quieted. Vanessa continued. "Fabrication specialist, permanent position." Jagger did not answer. Richard frowned. "Usually, people say thank you." Jagger looked at Vanessa. "Pay," Vanessa smiled. $31.50 an hour. Health insurance, after 30 days. Dependent coverage, available. Schedule, 6:30 to 3. Overtime. Optional except scheduled installation periods. Jagger calculated silently. Rent, food, school, bus fare, phone, Harper. "Can I have the offer in writing?" Richard looked at Vanessa. "I like him less every day." Vanessa laughed. "You'll have it this afternoon." Jagger nodded. "Then I'll read it. And, if the numbers work, I'll sign." Vanessa extended her hand. Jagger shook it. That afternoon he signed. At 4:12, Jagger called Megan Foster from the temporary restroom. "I have an employment letter." Megan became quiet. "Permanent?" "Yes." "Benefits, 30 days." "Income," Jagger told her. He heard keyboard keys. "Jagger." "What?" "There's a transitional housing unit in North St. Louis." He stopped breathing. "Family program." "Yes." "Waiting list." "You've been on it since our meeting." Jagger sat down. "I thought you said weeks." "I said 3 to 6. It's been less." "Another family moved into permanent housing yesterday." Jagger looked at Harper. She was drawing on the floor. What do you need? Employment verification, identification, school records. I have them. I know. Megan paused. You brought everything in a folder the first day. When can I apply? You already did. Jagger closed his eyes. Megan, I told you to call me every morning. You put me on the list. I did my job. The next day, Megan met Jagger outside a small brick apartment building. She held a white envelope. The unit isn't free, she said. Rent is income-based for the first year. Good. Megan smiled. I knew you'd say that. She handed him the envelope. Jagger felt metal inside. He did not open it. Harper stood beside him with the yellow backpack. Jagger gave her the envelope. What's this? Open it. Harper removed a silver key. She looked at the building, then at her father. Jagger's eyes burned. You do it, he said. They climbed one flight of stairs. Apartment 2, B. Harper placed the key into the lock. Her hand shook. Jagger covered her hand with his. Together they turned it. Click. Harper froze. It was the same sound as the temporary room, but this time no 7-night agreement waited behind it. Jagger removed his hand. Harper pushed the door open. An empty apartment stood before them. Bare walls, no furniture. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a window. Harper stepped inside. Jagger remained in the hallway. In his wallet, behind his new employee identification card, the old blue-capped key still rested. For 22 days, it had been proof of a door he could no longer open. Jagger took it out. He looked at the old key, then at Harper standing inside apartment 2. He placed the silver key beside the blue one. 2 keys. One for what had ended. One for what they had earned the chance to begin. Come on, Dad, Harper called. Jagger stepped across the doorway, and for the first time in 22 days, he entered a room knowing he would not have to explain why his daughter was sleeping there. The apartment echoed. Harper discovered that first. She stepped into the empty living room, cupped both hands around her mouth, and shouted, "Hello!" The word bounced from the bare walls. "Hello? Hello?" Harper laughed. Jagger stood near the doorway, holding their 2 bags. "Neighbors." Harper whispered hello. The apartment whispered it back. Jagger smiled. Apartment 2B had beige walls, brown carpet, and a kitchen small enough for Jagger to touch both counters if he stretched his arms. It was not beautiful. The refrigerator made a low clicking sound. 1 bedroom window faced a brick wall. The bathroom cabinet had a water stain beneath the sink. Jagger loved every inch of it. Harper ran toward the first bedroom. "This one's mine. You haven't seen the other one. This one's mine." "Why?" She pointed toward the window. "Light." Jagger looked at the narrow rectangle of afternoon sun on the floor. "Fair." Harper dropped her yellow backpack. Jagger immediately picked it up. "Don't unpack yet." Harper looked at him. "Why?" Jagger opened his mouth. No answer came. 7 nights, temporary rooms, library tables, metal station seats. For almost a month, unpacking had become dangerous. Unpacking meant believing you would stay. Jagger looked at the yellow backpack in his hands, then placed it on the floor. "Actually," he said, "unpack." Harper slowly unzipped it. 6 colored pencils, drawings, school papers, a purple rubber band, 1 clean shirt. She arranged everything along the wall. Jagger watched. The apartment began becoming theirs. Whitmore Civic Design had offered furniture. Vanessa sent Jagger a short email with a list. Sofa, beds, dining table, delivery available Friday. Jagger replied with 4 words. "Thank you, we are good." Vanessa called 3 minutes later. "You're not good. I'm employed. You have no furniture. Temporary condition. Jagger." "Vanessa." "Chanel." There was silence. "You need beds. I know. I can order them. I know. Then why are we arguing? We're not. We are. Jagger looked at Harper, measuring her bedroom wall with a school ruler. I need to build something. Vanessa became quiet. What? I don't know yet. She understood enough not to ask again. On Saturday morning, Jagger took Harper to a building material salvage warehouse. He spent $43 on reclaimed pine boards. Harper inspected every piece. This one is ugly. Character. Hole. Character. Crack. Discount. They carried the wood home in a borrowed Whitmore work van. Jagger spread the boards across the living room floor. What are you making? Harper asked. A table. We need beds. We also need somewhere to eat. We have a floor. People with tables still own floors. Harper considered this. Good point. For 6 hours, Jagger worked. He cleaned the boards, cut damaged ends, sanded old finish. Harper sat nearby with her pencils. She drew while he built. At 4:17, Jagger attached the final leg. The table was simple, rectangular, 4 feet long. One board remained darker than the others. Harper ran her fingers across the top. It doesn't match. Neither do we. She smiled. That evening, they ate grilled cheese and tomato soup at the new table. Jagger had bought 2 bowls from a thrift store, one blue, one white. Harper dipped her sandwich into the soup. Mom hated when I did this. Your mother was correct. You do it. I'm an adult. That's not a reason. It's the best reason. Harper laughed. At 9:03, Jagger put her to bed. They had purchased 2 mattresses using part of his first full paycheck. No frames yet. Harper's mattress rested on the floor. Jagger turned off the light. Good night, Bug. Night. He returned to the kitchen. At 9:28, Harper appeared. Can't sleep. Bad dream. No. Hot. No. Cold. No. Jagger waited. Harper looked toward her bedroom. It's quiet. Jagger understood. Gateway had never been quiet. Announcements, doors, footsteps, rolling luggage. Even the temporary room had the fabrication building's ventilation system. Apartment 2B was silent. Harper's body did not trust it. Jagger turned off the kitchen light. Get your blanket. They sat on the living room floor beside the table. Jagger warmed the remaining tomato soup. Harper held the bowl. You said soup isn't a night food. I've changed my policy. They stayed there until Harper fell asleep against his shoulder. Jagger carried her to bed. He left the hallway light on. 3 days later, Vanessa visited. She carried a small rusted tin box. Jagger opened the door. No furniture. Table. 1 table. That's furniture. Vanessa stepped inside. Harper ran from her room. Bad bench Whitmore. Hello, Harper. What's that? Vanessa looked at the box. My brother's. Jagger became still. They sat at the table. Vanessa placed the tin box between them. I found it after Caleb died. You never opened it. Once. Her fingers rested on the lid. I saw drawings. Closed it. Why bring it here? Vanessa looked at Harper. Because I think one of them already came here. She opened the box. Old paper. Bus schedules, receipts, scraps of cardboard. Jagger picked up the first drawing. A shelter. The second showed a chair. The third stopped him. 3 overlapping wall sections. A seat positioned behind them. Jagger touched the paper. I've seen this. Vanessa nodded. Behind Branson. I think so. Harper climbed onto the chair beside him. That's my wall. No, Jagger said softly. It's Caleb's. Harper studied it. Maybe we both thought it. Vanessa smiled. Maybe. Jagger turned the paper. In the lower corner, Caleb had written a sentence, leave room for the person nobody planned for. Vanessa read it aloud. Her voice broke on the last word. She covered her mouth. Jagger did not touch her. He did not tell her everything was okay. Some grief did not need to be interrupted. Harper moved from her chair. She stood beside Vanessa, then placed one of her 6 pencils on the table. Blue. Vanessa looked at it. "For the wall," Harper said. Vanessa closed her eyes. A tear moved down her cheek. "Thank you." Harper returned to her seat. She whistled. He pulled a clean sheet of paper from her backpack. "What are you drawing?" Jagger asked. "Our room." Harper drew the table first, the mismatched boards. 3 bowls, even though only 2 were in the kitchen. She drew Jagger, herself, Vanessa near the door, then the window. Jagger watched. Something was missing. He waited until Harper finished. "You forgot something." Harper looked at the paper. "What?" "The chair," she frowned. "You always leave one chair." Harper looked at the drawing, then at Jagger. "I didn't forget." "Then where is it?" Harper picked up the blue pencil Vanessa had returned. She added color to the window. "Don't need it." Jagger's chest tightened. "Why?" Harper continued coloring. "Because everybody came back." Vanessa lowered her head. Jagger looked around apartment 2B. Lauren had not returned. Caleb had not returned. The sentence was not literally true. Yet Jagger understood what Harper meant. Lauren existed in the way Jagger parted Harper's hair. Caleb existed in the curved wall being tested across St. Louis. People did not always come back through doors. Sometimes they returned through things they taught, things they built. A sentence remembered 13 years late. A blue pencil placed beside a grieving woman. Jagger looked at Harper's drawing again. For the first time, every chair was filled. He reached into his wallet. The blue-capped key was still there. Jagger removed it. He walked to the table, then placed the old key inside Caleb's tin box. Vanessa looked at him. "You sure?" Jagger nodded. "That door's done." He closed the lid. Harper taped her new drawing to the wall above the table. It was crooked. Jagger stepped back. "That's crooked." Harper smiled. "Artistic." Jagger stared at her. "You stole that." "I learned it." Vanessa laughed. Outlawed evening settled over St. Louis. Inside apartment 2B, 3 people sat around a table built from mismatched wood. On the wall hung a child's drawing of a room Jagger had never been able to promise. No empty chair, no bus schedule, no one pretending to wait for a ride. And beneath the drawing sat Caleb's rusted box holding an old key to a door that no longer needed to open. 18 months later, Jagger Perry still owned only one good shirt. Harper had informed him of this at breakfast. "You work for a design company." Jagger poured coffee into a plain black mug. "I work in fabrication." "You meet people." "I meet wood. Wood doesn't care about your shirt." "Exactly." Harper shook her head with the tired disappointment of a 10-year-old who had accepted that her father might never become fashionable. Apartment 2B looked different now. The reclaimed and domed pine table remained in the kitchen. Jagger had built 2 bed frames, a bookshelf, a narrow desk beneath Harper's window. The refrigerator still clicked. Jagger had decided the sound was part of the family. On the wall above the table hung Harper's drawing, the one without an empty chair. Her 6 old colored pencils sat in a glass jar beneath it. Harper owned 48 colors now. She still refused to throw the 6 away. "They think harder," she said. At 6:15, Jagger left for Whitmore Civic Design. His employee badge read Jagger Perry Fabrication Lead, not CEO, not director, not millionaire. Jagger liked the title. He led 9 fabricators and attended technical design classes 2 evenings each week at a community college. His first engineering mathematics course had nearly defeated him. Harper had taped the 6-color card above his desk. Think harder. Jagger passed with a B-. He framed the grade report. Richard Hayes called that excessive. Jagger framed Richard's complaint beside it. The 3 pilot transit structures had survived their first Missouri winter. Maintenance costs were lower than projected. The modular wind barriers had required 4 replacement sections. Each repair took less than 15 minutes. The city approved 9 additional installations. At the fabrication shop, Caleb's original drawing hung behind the main workbench. Vanessa had refused to place it in her office. "He didn't draw it for executives," she said. The paper remained protected behind glass. Below Caleb's handwriting, someone had attached a small brass plaque. "Leave room for the person nobody planned for." Jagger saw it every morning. One Tuesday, he entered Vanessa's office carrying a folder. She looked up. "No," Jagger stopped. "I haven't said anything. You have a folder, so—" "Your folders create work." Jagger sat. "Open bench workshop." Vanessa closed her laptop. "No. Still haven't explained it. I remember the last time you had an idea. We redesigned 12 transit structures. 9. 12 eventually." Jagger placed the folder on her desk. "People without stable addresses can't get through hiring systems." Vanessa's expression changed. Jagger continued. "Online applications reject incomplete address fields. Phones get disconnected. Interviews get missed because buses fail." Vanessa leaned back. "What are you proposing?" "Skills assessments. For Whitmore. For anyone participating. That's not a business model. Neither is ignoring skilled workers." Vanessa opened the folder. Jagger had outlined a partnership with the public library and local employment organizations. Carpenters, machine operators, repair technicians, industrial sewing workers. People with practical experience but inconsistent employment records could attend scheduled workshops. No guaranteed jobs. No charity hiring. Just tools, materials, and real tasks. "What do you call it?" Vanessa asked. "Open bench." Vanessa looked toward the shop floor. "Caleb, partly. Harper, mostly." Vanessa smiled. Richard hated the proposal. For 9 days, on the 10th, he rewrote the safety procedures. By the 3rd month, Richard personally supervised every assessment. Megan Foster connected participants with housing and documentation services. Claire Benton reserved a library meeting room for orientation. The program did not save everyone. Jagger insisted people understand that. Some participants did not return. Some lacked the required skills. Some needed help Open Bench could not provide. But 11 people found permanent employment during the first year. One was a cabinet installer. Another repaired commercial kitchen equipment. A 61-year-old man named Curtis became Whitmore's best finishing technician. Richard called him irritating. Curtis considered it a compliment. On a December evening, Jagger left work early. Harper had a school art exhibition near downtown. Afterward, they walked toward the Metrolink station. Snow had not started, but the air carried the sharp cold that came before it. Harper wore a red coat. Her yellow backpack was gone. She had finally outgrown it. Jagger had kept it in the apartment closet. "Can we get hot chocolate?" Harper asked. "We have cocoa at home." "That's not hot chocolate. It's chocolate, hot." "You're embarrassing. I've worked hard at it." They entered Gateway Transportation Center. Jagger stopped. The lights were the same. The metal seats. The announcements. For 1 second he could feel his brown jacket missing from his shoulders. $18.42. Harper asleep on steel. Officer Dennis Cole writing in a black notebook. "Dad." Jagger looked at her. "I'm good." Then he saw the woman. She sat near the far wall, maybe 26. A boy of 5 or 6 slept beside her. 2 large bags rested near their feet. The woman kept looking at the schedule. Jagger looked at the clock. 11:09. The last bus on the route she was studying had already left. The woman knew, Jagger knew, she knew. Harper followed his eyes. She said nothing. Jagger walked toward the seats. He did not stand over the woman. He sat 2 chairs away. For a minute, nobody spoke. Then Jagger asked, "You waiting on the 73 inches?" The woman looked at him. "Yeah. Last one left at 10:40. Her face hardened. "I know." Jagger nodded. Silence. The boy moved beneath a thin coat. Jagger looked at the woman's hands. Small scars across the fingers. A dark line of machine oil beneath one nail. "What kind of work have you done?" The woman frowned. "What work?" "Why?" Curious. She studied him. Industrial sewing. Clothes, upholstery, automotive. Machines, Juki, Conso, some Durkop. Jagger nodded. "You repair them?" When they jam. Timing depends on the machine." Jagger smiled. The woman narrowed her eyes. "Who are you?" Jagger reached into his coat. He removed a card. "Open bench workshop." He placed it on the empty seat between them. "Tuesday, 9 a.m. She looked at the card. "This a job?" "No." Her face closed. Jagger continued. "It's a place with machines and people who know how to watch somebody work. So, no job. No promise. Then, what's the point?" Jagger looked at her. "Nobody asks your address before you touch the tools." The woman became still. Jagger stood. "My name's Jagger." "Nicole," he nodded. "Tuesday, Nicole." Jagger returned to Harper. They walked toward the exit. Harper stopped near the same row of seats where she had once slept. She removed a sketchbook. "Now?" Jagger asked. "I need 1 minute." Harper sat. Her pencil moved quickly. Jagger waited. When she finished, she showed him the page. Gateway Transportation Center. A father, a girl, a woman, a little boy. Near the window stood a curved wind barrier, and beside it was an empty chair. Jagger smiled. "You left 1 chair again." Harper looked at the drawing, then at Nicole. "For whoever comes back." Jagger put one hand on his daughter's shoulder. They left the station. Behind them, Nicole remained seated. For several minutes, she did not touch the card. Then her son woke. "Mom." "I'm here." "When's the bus?" Nicole looked at the schedule, then at the open bench card. She picked it up. "Not tonight," she said. The following Tuesday at 8:47 a.m., Richard Hayes walked into the open bench workshop. A woman and a little boy were waiting outside. Richard unlocked the door. "Workshop starts at 9?" Nicole looked at him. "I know." Richard checked his watch. 13 minutes early. From inside the shop, Jagger heard him. He stopped. 13 minutes. Once 13 minutes had been enough for a stranger to call him unreliable. Jagger walked toward the door. Nicole stood beside her 2 bags. Jagger did not ask where she had slept. He did not ask for her story. He opened the workshop. "Come in," he said. On the wall behind him hung Caleb's drawing. "Leave room for the person nobody planned for." Nicole entered, and somewhere across St. Louis, a bus station bench stood behind 6 straight pieces of wood that formed a curve because none of them had been asked to carry the pressure alone. Maybe people were not so different. Sometimes a person did not need someone to rebuild an entire life for them. Sometimes they needed a door, a workbench, a fair question. What can you do? And sometimes they needed 1 chair left empty. For whoever comes back, Life does not always break people in ways the world can easily see. A missed paycheck, a dead phone, a canceled bus, or 13 lost minutes can become part of a chain that pulls someone farther from stability than anyone watching from the outside understands. Jagger's story reminds us that dignity and opportunity must exist together. Kindness is not always paying someone's bills. It is not always handing over a check or becoming the hero of another person's pain. Sometimes, kindness means resisting the urge to control the ending. Sometimes, it means opening a workshop and asking a person whom the world has already judged, "What can you do?" Vanessa turned back because a child's drawing forced her to see an old wound. Jagger stood again because someone finally allowed his ability to speak before his address did. And Harper left one chair empty because she understood something adults often forget: people can lose their place without losing their worth. If someone once turned back for you when they could have kept walking, tell us about them in the comments. Your story may remind another person that small acts are rarely as small as they seem. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And if you believe there should always be room for people trying to find their way back, subscribe and stay with us for the next story.